Hello everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. Happy Friday. I hope you guys are doing well. We are live here on Friday, September the 5th, 2025, and we are doing our lunar eclipse in Pisces readings. We're doing astrology readings, so if you guys can see me, give me a thumbs up, like this video, drop me a comment in the chat, let me know where you're tuning in from, and if this is your first time visiting, I hope you guys stay for a while. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of these live videos that we do on tarot and astrology on Fridays. I'm always here at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time, and that's 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. And we kind of alternate weeks. These ones get crazy, y'all. So we do a couple times a year our eclipse readings. I'm answering your questions about the upcoming eclipses. We have got a lunar eclipse this weekend in Pisces. It'll be taking place on the 7th. Some of you guys are already feeling those energies. So thanks for hanging out with me on a Friday live. We have a number of people already in the queue. And if you guys want to get in the queue, scan the QR code. And as a heads up, yeah, check out my webinar. We actually put out a webinar about a week or two ago on the fall 2025 eclipses. It is over 3 hours long, and you can find that for sale on my website. Check the links below. We'll also probably post it at some point in the chat. I go in depth and talk about what each individual eclipse means, both the lunar eclipse in Pisces on the 7th and the solar eclipse in Virgo on the 21st of September, with tarot predictions for the 12 rising signs, ritual recommendations, and all of my kind of global predictions. So I hope you guys enjoy that. For those of you guys who are level 4 members who get your monthly readings, I have actually made this available for level 4 people for free. It's included in your memberships, so definitely check that out. You'll find a members only video for you guys. I hope you enjoy that. Just another benefit of being a part of my channel memberships. While we're on the topic of that, I also have to do my monthly shout outs because this is the first Friday live that we're doing. So we've got different levels, but if you are a level 2, 3, or 4 member, you get a shout out from me. Big thank you guys so much for supporting the channel. Making it possible for me to be a full-time content creator. We've got people here like Jess, Enchanted, Mary, Mia, Sharon, Baby Lee. We've got the Braveheart, Alicia, Bree, Aquadome Fire, Kadia, MC, Tarot Empire, Diana, Coco, Hain, am I saying that right? Nancy, Melissa, Kathy, Ari, Contessa, we've got more here. Hold on, there's so many people who have joined memberships over the last month. Maria, Lauren, Janie Doe, Rosie YouTube, Bio Levy, Katie, Ashley, Janet, Shay, Smoky Brown Eyes, Claire, Laverne, Darlene, Erica, Grow Up Together, Taliba, and Susan Wexler. We actually saw so many people join memberships this month. It's been a huge increase, so big thank you guys so much. Consider joining memberships, and if you join even as simple as level 1, you actually get early access to my videos. So you'll get the videos like a day or two early before they come out. You can see them before anybody else, and we're constantly adding more content to the channel that's going to be kind of driving those memberships. And this Sunday, I'm going to be talking to you guys all about the astro weather of, well, the Sun and Mercury conjunct the South Node. It is a big clearing out period this week. And once we have the lunar eclipse on Sunday in Pisces, we are actually going to see a 2-week window as we're seeing lots of things changing, and then we'll approach the solar eclipse in Virgo. So check out that webinar if you guys want to see my thoughts on that. I have not put a video out on it yet, but it is a doozy. All right, thank you for letting me do this shameless plug. Let me say hello to everybody who's here. So I know we got lots of people waiting. Coco, I'm going to take you. Enchanted, what's up? David's here. We've also got Grace. She says it's conjunct my ascendant in Jupiter. That's amazing. What's up, Pooja B? All right, so this is how it works. You scan the QR code. We are going to be doing these readings. You can also see all the info that's going below here. For me to answer a question, it's $55 US donation, and you can ask about the eclipse. You can ask about timing stuff. If you have questions about your natal chart or transits, I'm here to give you guys the best insight that I can. And we're also doing synastry readings too, if that's something that you guys are interested in, for $75. I need to have your time, date of birth, and location. Please put your info in the memo box. So when you go to PayPal and you actually make the donation, you have to put that stuff in the notes for me in the memo so I can see your info. Sometimes people get kind of confused and the lives can get kind of chaotic, especially during the eclipses. So I appreciate your guys' patience. We are going to be doing the readings in the order that we receive them, and we will be starting with our level 4 people first. So people like Coco and Enchanted, but if there's any other level 4 people that want to get in and get your reading in for the month, you can. Or you can hold off and you can wait until we do another 2 weeks, and then we'll do the solar eclipse readings. All right, so we're going to start first with Coco, and then we're going to get into Enchanted. But I've got other people in the queue like Mary, Omar, Christina, Elizabeth, and Raina. And I'll kind of update the list as we go. So this is the first batch of people that I have the charts ready for. If you guys hear me calling your name out, it's just me letting you know your reading is coming up pretty soon. We will let you guys know when we're going to shut the readings down, because once we get so many, we just kind of tap out because I'll be here for a bit. And if we miss you, I hope to see you guys next week. And as a reminder, I'm live on September the 5th, Friday. So if you're watching this on Saturday or Sunday and you guys are all excited and you're sending your payments, I'm no longer live. So I will be refunding you if you guys send any payments after we kind of close out the readings. All right. So next to that, let's get going. And we're going to start with Coco. What's going on, Coco? I've got her December 1st, 1989. She's a Pisces rising with her moon in Capricorn and her sun in Sagittarius. She says, all the feelings, gotta love the Capricorn and Pisces in my chart. All right, well, Coco says, I'm gonna use my monthly. Everything is Ari with money, relationships, and constant feelings of loneliness. I wanna go back to therapy, but cost is an issue. Very dissatisfied. Will I get a break? I'm feeling kind of low. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Certainly the eclipse has a lot of people in their feelings. To be honest with you though, this is a much friendlier eclipse than the one that we're gonna see later in the month. So just some food for thought. As you're a Pisces rising, these eclipses are really impacting you personally, because you're gonna see the lunar eclipse that's gonna be connected to your ascendant sign. You're gonna see the solar eclipse that's gonna be connected to your 7th house later in the month. So this is really bringing up for you like the dynamic between who am I, where am I feeling the heaviness? Saturn's back in your sign. Neptune's also going to be retrograding back into Pisces, and feeling kind of like lost, lonely, detached, isolated. That is part of the theme. But something that I have kind of learned with the Saturn-Neptune conjunction that's been kind of brewing is, you know, we're being asked to kind of reevaluate where our boundaries are and like how much we can take on, what we are lacking, what we need more of. And obviously, you know, Capricorn is your moon. So Saturn is still kind of playing friendly with your Capricorn placements. So it is supporting your emotions, even though it may not feel like it. And as a Sag sun, you know, the eclipse is 4 houses from your sun sign. So it is going to represent a kind of clearing out, dealing with the past and emotions and home related situations. So it's a combination of the two. Now, what we're going to see with the eclipse that's coming in is that it's going to be taking place on September 7th. So it's Sunday. But with eclipses, you don't have to wait until the day of the eclipse. Sometimes you'll see something happen that day, but to be honest with you, 95% of my clients that I've been talking to the last month or so and on the lives have been already seeing the effects of these eclipses. The eclipse is going to be at 15 degrees of Pisces. So anybody who's listening, if you have anything around, I would say 14, 15, 16 degrees of Pisces, pay attention. It's going to be very significant for you. But for you, it's technically going to be in your 12th house. So when you're saying things like, I feel kind of like disconnected, or I'm feeling lost, or I'm feeling like things are really heavy, that is that connection to the 12th house, which can be dealing with like isolation. And mental health is a huge theme whenever we're looking at anything in Pisces. In particular, I would say like depression, you know, feeling limited, feeling like we're emotionally at a loss. And the full moon represents this full kind of clearing. So you want to think about what intentions you've been setting, what you've been working through personally on your own since March of this year. Now, the eclipse is positive in a sense where it is in harmony, not only with your chart ruler, okay, so it's trining Jupiter, but also it's harmonizing with your natal Jupiter. And I know you just had your Jupiter return and you're like, shouldn't things feel better than it does right now? But if you look at your natal chart, your Jupiter is retrograde in the 4th, conjunct Chiron, so it's bringing up heavy emotions tied to home, family, and the past, and it's also in opposition to all these Capricorn placements. So I use Placidus, I know you know that, so this is going to kind of take on some of the themes more of like the Aries risings, where, you know, there's a lot of things that are kind of changing emotionally and on the home front or need to change. And it's opposing some of the stuff that's going to be going on in like your natal, 10th house, which is about work and, things connected to your career, your professional life. So you can be feeling like you're being pulled in two different directions. Also, something that we see during the eclipse is that Jupiter is going to square Mars. So it's really kind of highlighting for you this need to release some of the pressure in like going towards your 7th house, right? So like your 7th house could be, do you have a partner that makes you feel supported? Do you have a mentor or a coach? Do you have a therapist? Are you getting an astrology reading, right? And in many ways, like astrology is really helpful, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to give you all of the answers that you need. I mean, and I'll be the first one to admit that. So when you're saying, hey, I need a therapist, but I'm kind of feeling like money is tight, I don't necessarily see it now, but I do get the impression as you're getting into the fall, like in November, you're going to see as a Pisces rising, there will be a retrograde. Mercury will actually turn retrograde in Sag, and it'll go retrograde back into your 8th house. My thought is that there could be some restructuring revolving around money. There could be also a reevaluation of, what you can afford, what you're paying for, what you're getting through insurance, what support you're getting from other people. And that's going to trine Saturn, and Mercury rules relationships and, therapy. So it might actually be a great time to get back in, and maybe you're going to start looking at the end of October or kind of doing some budgeting and seeing what you can afford. And then as the retrograde happens in November, it will retrograde back into Scorpio, which is your 8th house, which is for therapy. And it's going to trine Saturn, and it's also going to trine Jupiter. And it makes me feel like it's not just about traditional forms of therapy. It could be there's art therapy, there's dance, there's going to be opportunities to connect with creative things that can also be an outlet for you emotionally that can help you heal. Now, this is also part of the storyline where you're going to have the first eclipse that's going to be coming in this week, but then you're going to have the second eclipse, which is going to be taking place in 2 weeks' time. And that'll be a solar eclipse new moon in your 7th house. So it goes without being said, like Pisces risings, they get 2 new moons in this particular like solar month of Virgo. One was at 0 degrees. The next one is going to be at 29 degrees. And this is kind of marking a new chapter when it comes to relationships. And I think this is about kind of recognizing with the solar eclipse in opposition to Saturn and Neptune, where we can only do so much on our own. Right? And where, that breakdown with Saturn and Neptune is just like, man, like, I don't think I can just kind of like white knuckle life right now. And I really need the support of other people. And Virgo can be people in the healthcare field. It can be people you work with. It can also be about relationships that can be really supportive for you. And I get the impression that probably when you start seeing, transits from the solar eclipse on at the end of the month, that will, make this aspect. And also, it's going to come into a trine with Uranus, so you might feel like there's a breakthrough in like an alternative form of therapy. So it might mean that you're like, well, I can't go and sit and do a $200 or $300 session, but you find an app. It might be telehealth related to therapy. It might also be something connecting to journaling, or there's a book, or there's going to be a program, or there's going to be like an online program that you can do where you're feeling like you can converse and that you're actually like working through some stuff and you're healing. What can be healing also is like doing a lot more reinvestment in yourself and like affirmations and anything connected to movement, because Gemini is movement. And then you'll also see that this is going to trine Pluto, which is in your 11th house, where you may find a network or a community that's going to offer some kind of like medical support, but it is in your whole sign 12th. So that's also going to be helping you kind of make some changes, jump back into working with somebody one-on-one or getting some support. And I think that that will ultimately kind of play out, end of October going into November. She says, 12th house, lots of naps, lots of arguments about other people and situations by myself, with myself. Well, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger with Saturn and Neptune in your sign. It is showing you that there are some people, I think especially with the second eclipse, that you're needing to take space from, or you're recognizing or realizing that there are certain people that aren't actually really helpful. And it's pushing you to actually have more in-depth conversations, or to kind of look a little bit more to find people who can actually offer you real solutions. Certainly a solar eclipse takes time to unfold. So it can unfold between 6 and 18 months. So that can mean that it's really showing you all the way up until, let's say, March of next year, when we have another Virgo eclipse, when we have a retrograde in your sign, that if you decide that you're not willing to go and get some support or to do something, you'll have until about spring of next year, and you're going to be like, I don't want to do this by myself anymore. So awareness, I think, is everything. I think the other thing to kind of consider is that when the eclipses are coming through, especially in Pisces, there is this need to just like let go. And Saturn and Neptune can feel very confusing and very limiting, but also in the first house, it's helping you build strength and resilience, not through doing it alone, but by recognizing when you're like, okay, there are some things I just really cannot do by myself. And it's pushing you to kind of connect with other people. Particularly, you know, this is really strong also for like setting new intentions regarding relationships, because Mercury is going to be the ruler. It's going to be in your 7th house. It's going to be in Libra. And it's also making some of the same aspects to Uranus as well as Pluto. So I would definitely check some telehealth stuff. I feel like you might be able to find an app or something that's going to be a little bit more budget friendly for being able to feel like you're getting some emotional or psychological support. And truth be told, with Saturn and Neptune back in Pisces, literally conjunct your ascendant for the next couple of months. So it's probably the strongest about October until Saturn moves off of your ascendant, October and January. At that point in time, Saturn's then going to move away, Neptune's going to move away, and then the lesson for her Pisces risings with Saturn, Neptune, and Aries is going to be more revolving around money and finances. And it's going to come down to, you know, budgeting stuff, making necessary kind of cuts, especially if you're trying to focus on new goals or kind of feeling more stable and solid. But this eclipse, believe it or not, I feel like is much nicer than the next one, at least in my opinion. And that trine to Jupiter in your 5th house is really opening the door to creative self-expression, focusing on prioritizing joy, and it can also bring in lots of good energy in your relationships of any kind. So I would anticipate you're going to see more of that. And, you know, Saturn coming out of a square with your Mercury is also going to do the same thing. But as we get into 2026, you're going to have Saturn and Neptune then squaring all of your Capricorn planets, and that's going to initiate something new. So the budgeting, the financial stuff, focusing on your professional goals, these are all going to be themes that are going to kind of come full circle for you basically next year. Okay? Hang in there, stay hydrated, use water, go and take a dance class, do some painting, do something creative. As silly as it sounds, that trine to Jupiter means that there's going to be some sense of creative energy that's going to help you kind of move through the energies that feel heavy with Saturn and also Neptune going back into Pisces. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Coco. Let me know. What's up, baby Leah? Am I saying that right? I'll add you to my list. You're welcome. All right, let's take a look at Enchanted. Let's see. What's up, Enchanted? Nice to see you back. All right, Aries rising, sun in Aquarius, and the moon is in Scorpio. I love your chart every time I see it. What's up, Dorothy? Thank you. We're playing with the lights a little bit more. We've had these since we did the Midheaven podcast. We haven't really broke them out, but we use them for tarot, and I guess we like them now. All right, Enchanted says, cashing in. I haven't been here for a while. How are the eclipses going to be affecting me? Well, let's take a look. We have got the first one that's going to be in Pisces. So you might be feeling similar vibes with what's going on with Coco. This one's going to be in your 12th house. At the time of the eclipse, in your chart, I'm looking for aspects that it's making to earth and water. So it's going to sextile your Jupiter, which is good for physical manifestation, security, you know, vision boards, meditation, anything that deals with bringing in more money, right? And then the other thing is it's also going to be coming into a trine with your natal Uranus. So between that sextile and that trine, that could be actually really good for you for some increased money flow or positive shifts with your resources or with your self-esteem. The other thing that I think about is the fact that when the eclipse happens, it's going to in conjunct or quincunx Mars, which is your ruler, by the way. So as an Aries rising, you know, now Mars is coming off of your Pluto, thank God. But it's showing you, I think, where you're like, I feel like I need to run and hide, you know, or I feel like I need to retreat, or I need some extra rest, or like I just want to check out for a little bit. That's Pisces energy in a nutshell. But if you're a 0-degree Aries rising, you're going to be kind of bobbling along with what's going on with the collective. So the way that I see this is that in conjunct or that quincunx to Mars in your 7th house is like you're feeling like people are trying to get a hold of you. They're trying to reach out to you. There could be people who are irritating you. They're asking you for help. You could have clients, right? So if like you're a tarot reader or you're a healer or you're an astrologer during this time, everybody knows this is like the most psychotic time because we have clients that are already booked. At least, you know, I do. I know a lot of other people do too. And then when everything hits, all of a sudden everybody's like, are you available? Can I talk to you? Are you here right now? What's going on? And what you'll probably hear is that there's a lot of people that are going through anger, frustration, indecisiveness, Mars and Libra, revolving around relationships and people trying to kind of like get to you. And you're going to be like, nope, out of sight, out of mind. Like I'm putting, you know, the phone on airplane mode and you're kind of checking out a little bit. I think the downside of the eclipse in the 12th house can really show you where there's too much isolation, or if you're feeling disconnected, or if you're feeling lonely, or if you're feeling like, yeah, you know, like, are you doing it because you're trying to protect your energy and you're trying to keep from getting zapped or drained, or have you become too accustomed and too comfortable hiding out, not being seen? All right, so as like an Aries rising, you know, it's kind of like a bit of a conundrum because Neptune's retrograding, you know, back into your 12th house soon. Saturn's already there, so that's showing you like where there is a sense of not maybe always having the utmost energy or confidence, or not being able to feel, I think, enthusiastic about some of the work that you're doing. And it's also about health stuff too, so I know you know that, but I think with the eclipse, it's going to show you what you've really been working on emotionally, subconsciously, spiritually, things like that, since basically March of this year when we had the new moon. I think it was like around the 10th of March, 2025, if I remember correctly. I also noticed that it creates an inconjunct or a quincunx to your Saturn, where Venus is. And so I kind of feel like, you know, I'm just gonna, I always give you guys feedback. As a Pisces, as a Aries moon, I'm a Libra rising Aries moon. I've seen both sides of this. I've seen the side of it that's just like, okay, there's things I need to be better about. But then from the Aries perspective, I think the eclipse that's in conjunct Venus and also your Saturn is like, if you're going to take that alone time and you're going to be isolating, what are you doing with it, right? If you're taking a step back from clients, if you're not focusing on relationships, if you're wanting to be unavailable, what are you doing in Pisces land? Are you drawing? Are you painting? Are you working on creative projects? Are you praying? Are you meditating? Are you trying to do some heart space healing, right? Are you working on becoming more creative or more confident and more open to love? And I think that's going to be the huge focus. What I like is that what you'll see, you know, eclipse week, but it's going to really build into next week as well, is Venus is then going to start coming into a sextile with Mars. So you might feel like, yes, I'm creating a little bit more like me time, but I'm doing something with that me time, and that's to better support or show up in relationships or have better services or have better offerings. So if you are just resting and recuperating, you know, at this time, I would be thinking about, okay, well, do something productive with it, right? Don't just sleep. Like usually eclipses in the 12th house, we want to drink, we want to sleep, we want to binge watch, you know, Netflix and like do nothing. And to some extent, Saturn back in Pisces, North Node in Pisces, eclipses in Pisces, what it's showing us is the polarity to Virgo, that, you know, in order for us to truly actually be healthy, we have to look at our habits. And you could be an Aries rising that has been overworking, overdoing it, overcompensating, trying to fix things and take care of other people. Or maybe you're just focusing on your mind, body, spirit balance or your health. So I would take it easy around the time of the eclipse. I think that this is about you taking a step back and being like, it's not until I'm really finished doing my healing work that I'm going to be able to meet other people halfway. And this is a part of a storyline that will kind of unfold between now and next year, when finally Saturn and Neptune come into Aries and it's like go time. So there is this sense of like resting and recharging your batteries. And I would be looking at, because the eclipses are going to be in the 12th and in the 6th house axis, what will be then coming up for you between, you know, now and then. So the next 2 weeks. And then the solar eclipse is kind of fun in your chart because yes, it's in the 6th house. So it does talk about, okay, starting these new routines, committing to my habits, getting back on track, focusing on productivity, whatever. And this is going to also show you some of the blind spots where if you've been taking it too easy, now you have to kind of jump into action with health, wellness, and productivity. Loving the eclipse conjunct your descendant, it can mean that you're open for business or open for relationships or more willing to connect with people. And also noticing that Mercury is going to be there. So it might mean that this is like a really strong time for, you know, relationship connections. Obviously, Mars is on your moon around that time too. So it's really good for making money. It's really good also for like passionate connections, if that's something that you're looking for. And it looks like it's very social with the trine to Pluto and Aquarius and also Uranus and Gemini. So I almost kind of feel like saying, just take it easy, you know, between now and like the third week of September. And when you're more so recharged and you have a better awareness of what you feel like you're capable of doing and confident of doing, then you're going to be able to feel like you can get into the flow of a routine after the solar eclipse around the 21st. Obviously watch your health, right? This eclipse will oppose Saturn, that's still right on your ascendant. It's going to oppose Neptune, that's right on your ascendant. And you may be feeling that you're more sensitive, and just generally in a nutshell, something I talk about a lot with this eclipse is that, you know, Virgo is health, right? Solar eclipses is, oh my God, I have to make this change or quit this habit, or I'm starting a new routine. And then you're going to see it come into an opposition with Neptune. So you're more sensitive to weather changes, you're more sensitive to alcohol, drugs. Also, there could be a sense of being not so self-aware, and there could be things that could come up that you didn't know. So watch your health during this time, but the trine to Mars with this one, because you got Mars at 0 degrees, is really great for connecting and networking with other people too. So I mean, I don't know what it's like with your clients or your business, but I would use the solar eclipse to basically make a big announcement and be like, hey, I'm starting a new group, or I'm taking clients again, or, you know, I have a special, something like that could be really beneficial at a distance, right? Saturn rules work, and this is going to be opposing Saturn. So it might be something like, I record the readings and then I send it to you, you know, or I'm going to be looking at, you know, people's cards and kind of meditating on it and then coming up with my reading. And then once I've processed that, then I will, you know, kind of let you know what's going on. So health-wise, I think you're okay. You're done with the Mars-Pluto transit for the most part. So as Pluto's moving away from your Mars, I'm not as worried about it. And you don't have anything that's kind of squaring your sun, thank goddess. So hopefully that's helpful. I hope you get some much needed rest and relaxation during these particular eclipses, and that you're feeling much more up to the task of kind of getting down to business later this month. All right, let me add, let me see here. Can I collect my monthly reading? All right, baby. Let's see, March 9th, 1999. I'm gonna add you in here really quick, girl. This is significant for you because the new moon in Pisces was right around your birthday earlier this year. 8:27 a.m. in Whittier. $8:27, yeah. All right, baby, this is for you. So she says, I don't exactly have a question. I was just curious about what you see in regards to the eclipses in my chart. Okay, you got it. All right, so she's a Taurus rising, sun in Pisces, and the moon is in Sag. So baby, I want you to go back and I want you to think about what was happening during the new moon in March. Let's go look at it. All right, so this new moon was around February 27th, 2025. For some reason, I thought it was around March 10th. I guess not. So this was the new moon, which was seeding something which would then become a full moon. So generally speaking, the new moon in your 11th house, that was not an eclipse. We actually had an Aries eclipse. So it was just a regular old new moon, but it became an eclipse, obviously, now in the fall. And when this new moon hit, it was ruled by Jupiter. And it was actually squaring Jupiter. So there was this focus on what are my goals? How am I connecting with community? What is my financial kind of goals? Because Jupiter was the ruler and it was hanging out in your second. And there was a lot of feeling kind of like there was going back and forth about whether or not you could or should spend more, whether or not you could or should bring in more money. And also your relationship with certain friends, networks, and allies. We had Jupiter in your second house, Gemini, Saturn, which was conjunct your sun. And I'm wondering like what was happening for you there? Was it goals revolving around relationships and dating? Were you feeling a little strapped financially with making changes on the home front? Something was going on there. So now 6 months down the road, this is a lunar eclipse and the eclipse is going to be right on your sun basically. It's within a couple of degrees. So it'll be at 15 degrees. Your sun is at 18. So this is pretty significant. Now I use Placidus. I do not use housing signs. So even though you're a Taurus rising, the eclipse is kind of tagging the 5th house ruler, the sun, and it's putting it in the 11th. So my interpretation of that is that it's giving you the opportunity to have a party, celebrate, be around friends, community, and reconnecting with people that you haven't seen for a while, joining groups or associations, networks, and other people who are more Pisces-like. So these could be artists, these could be people who are foreign, it could be dropping in for a meditation class, it could be focusing on an art class, or something creative that you're kind of sharing with other people. And I think as a Pisces sun, over the last like 2 years, having had Saturn on that part of your chart, there's been a lot of lessons about that. Or, you know, the 11th house could also represent if you're dating, you know, going back and forth and dating people and trying to sort and sift through, you know, who am I with? Who are other people seeing? What I like is that, you know, it does really highlight your 5th house of creativity. And it's trying to get you to take something you enjoy or something you're creating and sharing it with other people. So this is I think it's a great, it's the best eclipse all year, right? We had the Virgo eclipse that happened in March, which was kind of messy. We had the Aries solar eclipse, which was kind of like wrapping up also, which was not easy. And we have this one, which trines Jupiter, and it's ruled by Jupiter. And I think for a Taurus rising, it's about your voice, right? Because Jupiter's in the 3rd house. So it's like, are you publishing something? Are you sharing something on social media that goes, you know, kind of like viral? Are you going to be making a big announcement, launching a website, focusing on learning? Does this give you the opportunity to make some plans to travel with friends or to travel with family? Certainly Jupiter in the 3rd house could be about you talking to, you know, some of your relatives about planning a trip. Or family gatherings, that could be another theme, and like maybe traveling to go and see family, or, you know, friends wanting to go somewhere with you. So when we look at the eclipse, we have to look at the ruler. So the eclipse sextiles your ascendant, trines the ruler, and it's got pretty decent aspects all across the board, especially that trine to your 7th house Mars. So that makes me feel like for you, it's like, girl, if you're single, I'd be getting out there and mingling. I'd be trying to meet people. And at the very least, you're going to make some friends. At the very most, you might get introduced to somebody, or there might be like a romantic connection. You may have to travel a little bit to kind of, you know, make this possible, or join some new groups or associations. But if you're getting social, I think it's actually going to be quite wonderful for your chart. Now, it does square your moon and also Pluto, which is in your 8th house. So it is bringing up vulnerability, intimacy, you know, funds of what it costs to get out there, socialize, and kind of join things. She says, I'm trying to get back into touch with my creative side that I lost during my first 12th house perfection. My partner and I have been growing a lot closer and feel very in love. Well, then my advice is, because it's trining your 7th house Mars, this is about doing things together and incentivizing your partner to also be in alignment with like some of your creative or social goals. At the very least, it's like, are they going to be your cheerleader? At the very most, are they going to come along for the process, right? And then the second eclipse that you're going to have will be taking place on the 21st. And that one's actually, in theory, as a Taurus rising, you'll hear it's in your 5th house. So it's going to be about, oh, creativity and like initiating new projects. But I don't think so. I feel like the Mars retrograde earlier this year was that for you. The Mercury retrograde recently was that for you. And you're just trying to find your tribe and other people who you can kind of create and collaborate or get feedback from. The solar eclipse is going to be in your 6th. So this is more along the lines of, you know, health and habits. And that one is a little tricky because it is going to oppose Saturn. So it's going to show you where, you know, you're questioning, do I have the time and the scheduling to connect with people? Are there changes going on with, you know, my schedule, my work, or my routine? Certainly also putting an emphasis on making time for the things that you love, right? Venus, your ruler at the time of this eclipse, is sitting in Virgo. Well, she's not happy there, but she likes being, you know, in your 5th house. She also, I think, likes trining your ascendant and sextiling your Mars. So if anything, if you're not feeling like during the Pisces full moon, which is not about manifesting, it's not about really doing anything, it's just about kind of riding the waves, the solar eclipse is going to be, okay, I'm getting back into doing this creative work, Venus in the 5th, I'm making the time for it, even if it means I have to kind of come out of hibernation mode, or I have to connect with people I don't know and build community. So that way I can create and collaborate, and you might be doing it with people at a distance because it's going to oppose Saturn. She says, during the new moon phase, I actually had some really terrible things my mom said about me, and she kicked out my little sister, so there was family drama. It taught me to see people for who they are, pay attention to what I really can practically build, Saturn and Pisces. And I've been letting go of a past romantic connection. I have been, okay, so, you know, my thought here is that the stuff that was going on in March, right? The Venus retrograde was very much, I think, about being like, I need to kind of keep to myself. The Mercury retrograde could have been the same. And at the beginning of the year, Mars is also turning retrograde. And it was turning retrograde. It started in Leo. So for Taurus risings, there was family drama that was getting uncovered. And then recently, Mercury retrograde, more family drama that's getting sorted out with where is my sister living? Where am I living? What's my relationship to the family? So that's more of why it was happening. And obviously you had all these retrogrades over all of your Aries stuff. So it was also you going like, okay, am I ducking for cover or am I like hiding out, you know? This eclipse, I would really get serious if you do have a new creative hobby or practice that you're wanting to participate in sticking to a routine, staying consistent with it, holding yourself accountable to do it, and like making, that's what's weird about having kind of like Virgo in the 5th house is you have to be very analytical and strategic, and you have to have an order or a system, or you have to make sure that it's scheduled to have fun. So whether you're taking art classes, whether you're, you know, trying to create more date nights for you and kind of your partner, maybe you're really focusing on, you know, starting a new hobby and like learning it at a distance. All of those things need to be integrated more into your routine. And because it's sextiling Jupiter in your 3rd, it's stuff you can do remotely. It's also things that you can be learning online. And I do feel like it might also be some kind of creative writing or something revolving around, you know, teaching or sharing kind of what's on your mind with other people. So hopefully that's helpful for the eclipses. How cool that you're having the eclipse basically, you know, on your sun, and the North Node is also trining your sun. All things want you to connect with other creatives. It's about realizing that for you to really fully create, you need to do it with other people. So don't isolate yourself or anything like that. There's plenty of time for that next year when Saturn comes back into your 12th house. Hopefully that's helpful for you. We're gonna call last call in about 3 minutes. So if you guys wanna get in, I recommend doing so. We're now going to, if we have all the level 4 people, if anybody else pops in, let me know, but I'm gonna continue on with my list of everybody else. All right, so let's see what's going on with PayPal. And if you guys are just tuning in, make sure you subscribe, give me a thumbs up, like this video. Let me know if you're tuning in from a new location or if this is the first time you've been here. Scan the QR code if you guys want to get in on the queue and get your readings. So we're going to start off with, we've got Mary, Omar, and Christina. You guys are all of the people that I have. So let's see what Mary has to say, and I'll pull up her chart. Mary Margaret. Okay, so she says 2285 at 5:39 a.m. in Fort Worth. Capricorn rising, Aquarius sun, and the moon is in Cancer. She says, I've started an astrology business and my husband is up for a big job promo that could really elevate our lives financially. Will my astrology career flourish financially with my husband's promotion helping support that growth? Thanks for sharing your amazing astrology knowledge in advance for the reading. There you go. There's Mare Bear. You're welcome. All right, so she's starting a business. Husband's trying to make more money, potentially getting a promotion. And the question is it going to all kind of come together? So for you, it's interesting that you're asking this stuff because I don't know what housing system you use. Astrologers are kind of particular and definitely very vocal about which system we like. But according to the Placidus housing system, these eclipses are happening in your 2nd and also in your 8th house. So it's very much with Saturn back in your 2nd house. What am I building, right? What's going on for me? Like, how am I, obviously Saturn is your ruler, really applying myself and trying to bring structure, Saturn, to something that's more kind of, you know, like not so structured, Pisces, more metaphysical. And Neptune is there as well, and it's been right on top of your Mars. So there is this sense of you going, okay, is it going to be all me? Am I the one building it? And to some extent, yes, I think you're going to see a little bit more progress that's going to be happening with you first. That doesn't mean he's not going to get it. We'll get to him in a second. But what I can tell with Saturn back on your Mars is you're the person who's having to show up and like fight the good fight, right? And like I have Mars in my 2nd house. So I remember when Saturn came through there and it hit my Mars, I kind of felt like I was like defenseless. I was like, I don't have any armor. Like nobody can kind of fight things off. Like I'm having to be the one who's either building everything, paying for everything, and like making the money. And like it's going to make you grind. And you have to be careful because with Saturn and Neptune on your Mars, on one hand, it can be good if you're doing, intuitive kind of spiritual work, but it's also about really grounding exercises and like making sure you're nourishing the body and you're not like burning yourself out. Now, Saturn and Neptune won't leave that conjunction until the beginning of next year. So there is going to be something that's still kind of brewing between now and let's say like, January, February of 2026 before it finally starts to ease off, and you won't feel like the one who's, I think, like the sole, kind of builder or provider. I think it'll get a little bit easier. There will still be other fish to fry because then it's going to go into Aries. It's going to hit your Venus, which is very much going to be about your career. And it's going to be about initiating a new way of working and also new things on the home front. And then it's going to square your natal Neptune. So as you know, with astrology, there's always something coming, right? Something's always kind of developing. We have sweet and salty aspects. I think that the lunar eclipse in Pisces is very good for your finances, just to put it very simply, because it's in your second house. So it's like, okay, I'm feeling confident, I'm making money, I'm grinding, this is working. And recently, Jupiter has been hanging around your moon. So it means that you're like, hey, I'm taking clients. Your moon's at a 3. Maybe focusing on, reports or media or websites and things like that and being open for business. And in the fall, you're going to see Jupiter trining Saturn. So it's really going to help you feel like, okay, I've got clients, I'm building clientele, I'm helping people. But also this is about you being like saying to your partner, I've got this, just focus on what you're doing. And he'll be like your cheerleader with Jupiter in your 7th house. In terms of other aspects, Saturn's also trining your Saturn in the 10th house, which is good for like really kind of building and having some transformation in how you make money. And you'll see that continuation of like a Jupiter trine your Saturn, Jupiter trine transit Saturn. And then next year, when Saturn and Neptune hit your Venus, you might decide, I'm going to start teaching astrology, or I'm going to start a new website, or there's new media. You also might move, so there might be themes revolving around, okay, finances are changing. Now we can, move to a new place or update the house, or, we have kind of serious home and family plans that are kind of, being put in motion. Now your partner's money, on the other hand, is the Sun or Leo. And earlier this year, Mars went retrograde through there. So there was like a sense of being like, okay, well, Mars was opposing Pluto. What am I paying for versus, the delay in what he's getting. And then Mercury has gone retrograde there over the last month, which is a lot of conversations about, well, I think it's going to come through. It's going to happen. There's going to be a change. And you're kind of bracing for, okay, when that happens, how does that impact my schedule? And like, can I actually feel like I'm doing work in a way that is more emotionally in alignment, where you're not feeling like you have to do as much, right? Capricorn rising, I mean, come on, Pluto on the midheaven, you're like a workaholic. Part of your South Node Saturn is about learning that in this lifetime, it's not about overdoing it and like being overly committed and devoted to your career. Pluto square Pluto is teaching you that right now too. Uranus is in opposition to your Saturn, so you're also anticipating lots of creative changes and changes going on with home that's going to impact your work as well. But the solar eclipse, I think, is more talking about what's going to happen with his money. And that's going to be around September 21st, 2025, because he's obviously the moon and his money is the sun. So it can be planting a new seed revolving around, okay, what he's going to get. Can something happen then? Sure. I mean, around the end of September, there could be a breakthrough. Venus is in the 8th house, so it can mean that there is now more money, Venus at a 2, coming through. But Venus is still square Uranus, so it's not going to be like immediate. And you're also going to see that this eclipse is planting a new seed for his financial growth over the next 6 months between now and March. And it is in opposition to Saturn. So it's almost like he's saying, okay, my goal is to help kind of relieve you of feeling the stress and the burden of having to work a lot. But the 8th house eclipse is managing, debt, paying off, stuff that you owe, dealing with mortgages and loans, and coming up with like a structured way of handling things once the money does come in. Now it does also trine Pluto in your whole sign 2nd house. It also trines your Mercury. So it looks like that there is going to be news, but I would be expecting when there are stronger transits to your sun, like when the North Node's coming up on your sun, when you have eclipses that are going to be happening there at the beginning of next year, when Pluto comes into conjunction with your sun, that could be a bigger transformation of your guys' joint resources. And that's like down the road. And you were born with the sun in a slight square to Pluto and also the South Node. Now, I think probably what's going to happen is, I mean, you're going to be so busy. Like, look at all the planets that are going to go through your 10th house. Look at Mars that's going to go through your 10th house. Like, you're not really getting a break. Maybe until Mercury retrogrades over your Saturn. So you're looking at the end of October. And then Mercury will retrograde over Saturn with Venus. So that might be end of November, you know, kind of starting to scale back. And then I'm kind of thinking there's going to be better financial changes happening when the eclipses start happening in Aquarius, which is your sun sign, rules the 8th house, his money. And Mars will sit on the sun. So it means that you're going to go, okay, we're having to spend money, or we're planning on moving, or there is like a new focus when it comes to your guys' home life. Probably what you'll see throughout that cycle as the North Node gets closer and closer to your sun is that he becomes more financially supportive in the long run. But you might look at it and go, okay, the money's going to come in, but does that mean that I scale back? Maybe we both keep doing what we're doing. We pay off some debt, we buy a house, you know, we invest, we save money. And then there's a bigger storyline at the end of 2026 where you're kind of scaling back a little bit and feeling like, okay, now there's going to be some changes and some financial support that's really coming in with both Jupiter and Mars in your 8th house. So there is a plan, there's a process. But I think right now the eclipse in Pisces is really good for your resources, and watch for news coming in regards to his raise or some changes around the end of September, which will take some time to kind of play out. Okay. Hopefully that's helpful. Good luck with your astrology business. Certainly not an easy business to be in. I always tell people we feel like human garbage men, you know, whenever we get into like retrograde and eclipse season, because it's a lot of sorting and sifting through things, but you know, we love it. All right, so we have Omar, Christina, and Elizabeth, and readings are about to close. So if you guys want to get in before we call last call. Okay, so let's pull up Omar. What's up, Omar? Omar is December 9th, 89. He's a Libra rising with a sun in Sag and a moon in Taurus. And he says, let's put the date for the eclipse up here. All right. Omar says, just want to see what these eclipses are going to activate for my personal chart. You got it. You're welcome. What's up, the Leo Queen? Libra risings unite. There's a lot of them. I've seen a lot of Pisces risings, Virgo risings, Libra risings. All right, so let's talk eclipses. This one's fun, right? Because you have a sun in Sagittarius. So the eclipses are going to be squaring your sun. It makes your sun the focal point of this eclipse. So, you know, Pisces, 6th house, trying to be productive, be orderly, focus on health, your daily routine. But as like a Libra rising, easier said than done, because Pisces often overlooks things, or it kind of does things when it feels like it. And it's harder to focus on health and routine. And big bad daddy Saturn coming back into the 6th house is a reminder for a Libra rising that's like, hey, I'm coming back. What haven't you taken care of? And that could mean having better schedule management, getting back to the gym, going and getting a physical, checking in with a doctor, and also where your emotions have an impact and an effect on the work that you do and your productivity. So you're going to have to really think about what you have been working on really over the last 2 years with Saturn being there. I've seen a lot of Libra risings that have had health issues. I've seen Libra risings that have had scheduling restrictions or problems maybe with fellow coworkers. And honestly, I like Saturn in the 6th a lot better than Saturn in the 7th, personally, from what I've seen. And I think that a malefic does better in the 6th house, because we can actually kind of straighten out our health and our schedule, and we can be more productive. So it's going to bring that to your attention. Now, a full moon lunar eclipse is going to highlight things like, you know, am I having a job change? Am I having a scheduling change? Is there something going on with my pets or with my coworkers? And maybe giving you some kind of clarity about where there has been some challenges, and I think having boundaries when it comes to your work-life balance. This is also in a sign that inconjuncts or quincunxes Libra, particularly it's inconjuncting Libra in the 1st house, Mars. So it's like where you're getting frustrated or agitated with other people, but it can also be because there's people not doing their job, or, you know, your schedule's not going according to plan, or, you know, it's really highlighting where you're doing too much. And the 6th house can be accidents, okay? So knowing that Mars is in the 1st house and you're more prone to rush through things, to have cuts, burns, bruises, abrasions, you have to be very, very careful with your health here. Now the eclipse is at a 15, which is a driving degree, Gemini. It's also communication, documents, paperwork. And it's going to trine Jupiter, both your natal Jupiter and also transit Jupiter. So it's saying that, if you can get things in order and if you can really focus on having a set schedule, you're going to not only feel better emotionally and I think have better health, but you're also going to find that you're going to have more success at work. So some Libra risings are like, I have to find a better job or change my schedule, or, I have to hire help, or, maybe you're looking for just a new office even. So really focusing on that structure and routine in your day-to-day is going to help you really have, I think, a lot of growth with your career. It's also trining Chiron. So it's going to show you where health or, issues with your health can pop up, because there's wounds revolving around your work or your responsibility that's showing up, that's getting kind of inflamed because Jupiter is conjunct Chiron. However, it creates a grand water trine in your chart. So it's trining Pluto in your second house. It's also slightly trining Mars in your second house. So this is going to be about money management, what you're eating, what you're consuming, all of that stuff. And it's obviously very watery, but I think you can navigate that with the amount of water that you have in your chart. Now, it's also like, how much do you want to spend when it comes to health, right? I think that's the other thing. As a Sag sun, it's squaring your sun, which is not fun. And when you have an eclipse squaring the sun, it's like an ego check, and the sun represents your goals and how you communicate and express yourself. I could see some communication issues, some issues with neighbors or relatives. There could be some traveling mishaps and issues revolving around trying to travel around work, or, vice versa. And also any health-related things that are kind of connected to traveling or connected to, the third house can be your shoulders, your hands, your arms. And once again, third house sun, you like to be mobile. So like, don't be texting and driving. You shouldn't be anyway, but don't. Be careful with driving, and don't be trying to rush places and getting from point A to point B, because there can be some issues. And I would say the second eclipse is also the setup for after you have been like, okay, I got all of my stuff done, you can actually take it easy at the end of September, right? You're gonna have a solar eclipse that's gonna be in your 12th house that says rest. Take some time away. Focus on really setting new intentions revolving around meditation, a nighttime routine, wellness practices, being alone in nature. And if you can take that time, you can really tap into Mercury on your ascendant, where you're gonna be very checked in, and I think you're going to be more open to communicating and traveling, and I think your intuition is going to be very strong. Usually with transits going through the south house, the 12th house, it's losses. So what are you willing to give up? What outdated ways of thinking, or how you see the world, or what you believed in, needs to kind of come full circle, loving that this trines your Venus, your chart ruler. I'm a Libra rising. I can tell you how I'm going to use this, getting all the work done at the beginning of the month, and then at the end of the month, I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to do nothing but clean and organize. That's my plan. Clean up closets, get a bunch of stuff ordered, because like you, it's trining stuff in my 4th house. And man, look at Pluto still conjunct your Venus. So it's about big changes that are happening on the home and family front. It could feel like a big emotional detox day. Take it easy, get some rest, and I feel like for the most part, this is going to show you, if you really got your act together at the beginning of September, this is going to give you some much needed kind of downtime where you can kind of get back in action and feel a little bit more mind, body, spirit balanced come the beginning of October. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Omar. Thanks for your reading. What's up, Adriana? I'll add you to the list. I'll let you know when you're coming up. We've got Christina, Elizabeth, and Raina. What's up, Christina? All right, so let's see what she says. Christina is November 22nd, 1970. And she's a Scorpio rising with a sun in Scorpio, and she has a moon in Virgo. Single question. Do you see an offer for promotion or anything good coming for me with this up and coming eclipse? 2006 eclipses in similar degrees were some of the most stressful times in my life. Hoping for better this time around, but also bracing for impact. All right, so Yes, these are similar, but I'm going to tell you that the eclipses in the fall, and I was looking at those too, 2006. There was planets that were in other places than they are now. So you're referencing the September 2007 eclipse, 2006, sorry, September 7, 2006, where you had a full moon lunar eclipse in your 5th house, okay? So likely, that conjunction to Uranus is what threw everything all over the place. And Uranus is your kind of mental lord, but also it deals with your whole sign 4th, which is your living situation. And there could have been a lot of drama going on either in your romantic life or with your family. And it was opposing stuff that was in your 10th house, where it was like, oh my God, there was lots of changes at work, and that brought up a lot of stress at home. And, a lot of other things were kind of in the mix then that aren't going on now. I attribute a lot of that to the fact that you have heavy Scorpio placements and Saturn was just kicking your ass, squaring everything. So it wasn't just the eclipses. Pluto was also squaring the eclipses and the nodes around the same time. So look at Pluto, your chart ruler, in the 2nd house, whole sign of money, squaring stuff where there was some big kind of like financial things that were playing out as well. So don't go into it being like, oh, the same thing's going to happen. Now, the eclipse is in Pisces, right? But it's going to have much better aspects this go round. So let's look at this. The upcoming eclipse, which is going to be on the 7th. And the eclipse is on like the most southern part of your chart, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. So this is your IC. I think, at least in my opinion, the 4th house is kind of like the womb of the natal chart. This is our private life, our home, our emotional security, and at least when the moon goes through there, it's at home. The moon is also in Pisces trining all of your Scorpio, particularly your Venus and your Jupiter, so that's positive, especially for like emotional clearing, feeling more at peace, at home, that kind of stuff. And it does oppose your natal moon. So it's creating, in your chart, the sun-moon conjunction, which is like, what are my goals? What's going on at work? Is there going to be a change? And the South Node Mercury Sun can be an indication that there is going to be a change at work. There could be a shift in position. Mercury is the ruler of your 8th house, where you could negotiate more money or kind of better terms for this new position. And I would be following after the eclipse when Mercury conjuncts the Sun and the South Node, like the 11th of September through like the 14th, because Mercury is going to conjunct here. So it can represent, oh, somebody's leaving, there's an open position, are we giving it to you? Do you want it? Do you want the added responsibility? So on and so forth. And it will trine your Saturn in the 6th house of work. It will also come into a square with your Mercury, which means you really need to know what you want and what you're willing to kind of go into. But you are still grappling with, the eclipse in opposition to your moon, the South Node hitting your moon, and that's also emotionally turbulent because we have a lot of mood swings when that happens. We feel like things are not in order, things are in disarray. Like taking on a position with some of these transits, could you, fill the place of somebody who's leaving? Sure. But I read this almost like a Sag rising because you're a late degree Scorpio, where it's like, well, there can be some positive changes happening at work, but it could also mean like you're going, do I really feel comfortable taking this on? Like, is this something that I feel emotionally ready to do? That lunar eclipse in Pisces is bringing your attention to what's going on the home front, right? Where you're living, what you need to be doing emotionally, what's happening with your family. And the second eclipse is right on top of your Pluto. And that's going to be around September 21st. So an eclipse on Pluto in many ways can be empowering. Like, remember, it's highlighting your natal placement. So what is Pluto in Virgo in the 10th house at 29 degrees? Like the most responsibility, the most organization, like the most critical. And it's going to set up for you like a 6 to 18 month period where you're going to be like, okay, my job needs to change, Pluto. And it's opposing Saturn in your 4th house where you're like, am I having to be in the office more? Is there more responsibility? Am I out of the house more? How do I feel about that? Do I have to change something about my home hours to be at work more often? And is there a situation where, possibly there's like relocations or changes going on with home or family that's impacting your job? Now, you need to see something happening that's positive with your natal Mercury. That's how we see whether or not there's going to be a job change. And the eclipse does square that. So it can mean because there is some kind of an announcement, it's kind of going like, well, do you want it? And are you up to the task? And do you like what's being offered to you, right? Mercury is a part of your whole sign second. It's the ruler of your 8th house of money owed and benefits. And the question is going to be what they offer you. Do you feel like you're going to be fairly compensated? That would be my concern. Down the road, you'll see another Mercury retrograde. That's going to be a couple, months away. But that retrograde is going to be in Sagittarius, and it rules the South Node in your 10th. So there is possibly a situation where there's a delay. They're like, yes, we are going to be, giving out these, what's the word that I'm looking for? Like evaluations of your work, or maybe they're going to say, well, we have some positions coming open, we will get in touch with you and we'll see if, that's something that you want to do. And you may be talking about that in November because Mercury is going to retrograde conjunct Mars. So it's going to be like, okay, what are they going to offer me? What's going to happen? And I would give it a little bit of time because I don't think you're going to see it exactly in September. I think it's going to be more in November or December that you're going to see some of these shifts taking place. I think that you have to really ask yourself, because you have Mercury square the moon natally, there is this conflict between what you want to be doing versus what you're expected to do. And there could be this tendency to lean more into your Virgo moon that's like work, work, work. So is Pluto. But, Mercury in Sag, Neptune in Sag, Sun in the 1st house is like, is that really aligning with where I see my life going? Just some food for thought. Also, as like a Scorpio sun, Scorpio rising, Uranus is still opposing your sun. So that means that you're still going back and forth from a whole sign perspective, dealing with lots of relationship changes, either to your employer or to the company that you're working for. But if there's one thing I do know, Scorpio risings are going to have a pretty significant glow up next year. Saturn going back into Aries, Neptune going into Aries, Jupiter going to Leo. It kind of spells out that there is going to be new job stuff happening in this next year that can be very positive for you. I just feel like it's going to be a little bit of a delay. I don't think it's going to happen immediately in September. Hopefully that's helpful for you. Christina, circle back. Let me know if you get that job and what happens. Try to be more optimistic because the aspects now are way better than they were in 2006 in your chart. Adriana, Mandy, Jeremiah, Christy, Dannon. I have all of you guys, so if you hear your name, and Raina and Elizabeth, I've got you guys. So readings are now closed, so if you heard your name, I got you. All right, so let's now move to the next person. And it looks like we're going to be taking Elizabeth Martinez. Is that right? Who do we just have? Christina? Yeah, we're going to take Elizabeth Martinez and then Raina. Thank you guys for your patience. I appreciate it. Elizabeth's got questions about a relationship. What's up, girl? November 14th, 1984. That's Elizabeth's info, I believe. Is that correct? I want to make sure I have the right one here. Yeah. Okay, so she's a Capricorn rising, sun in Scorpio, moon in Leo. And she says, hey, Candace, I was wondering if you could give me insight on my relationship. We've been together for over a year. It's been quite up and down, and I've been doubting if I should continue the relationship. All right, so hold on a second. I'm noticing 11/14/84, 10:56 a.m. I have Atlanta, but it looks like St. Paul, Minnesota. So, Elizabeth, are you here? Unless this is another person with the exact same information. I'm going to edit this. 11/14/84, 10:56 a.m. in St. Paul, Minnesota. So let's add that. There we go. Changes your chart a little bit, but same placements. All right, so some food for thought is the moon rules your relationships, right? And you were born with Mars in opposition to the moon. So you're no stranger to some drama and some back and forth in relationships. But throughout this last year, Mars has been retrograde on your moon. So you say you guys have been together for a year, but I'm thinking back to literally December of 2024 when Mars started its retrograde over your moon. So it was basically saying there is a reevaluation and a reassessment of romantic partners, boyfriends, right? Leo, relationships, 7th house, the moon, partnerships, and Mars is like, communication with a person. And it felt like you were going like, is this working? Is this not working? And then Mars retrograded in January into opposition with your Mars. So that to me says like there's been some power struggles, some friction. Obviously we know Pluto was there as well. So there was probably a sense of you going, I'm going through a lot of changes. Like, do I want to continue this? So then we fast forward to recently when we got to July, end of June going into July, and then Mercury retrograded right over your moon. And this was about reevaluations, reassessments, miscommunications, you know, what is and isn't working, and kind of airing some of that stuff out, still in opposition to Pluto. So July into August has been kind of like a deja vu of what you were experiencing earlier in the year and finally airing it out. So we can decide to leave relationships or reevaluating relationships. There can be relationship issues that can come up. And that has been really difficult, I think, with some of the squares to Pluto in the 10th and the oppositions to Pluto in the 1st. So a lot of it's like, are we on the same page? Do we want the same things, you know? And yeah, Jupiter in your 7th house is great, but it's been squared by Saturn, and there's been a lot of other things going on opposing your natal Jupiter. And it can make partners almost kind of seem like very emotional, or they're going through like a lot of, you know, family stuff or home stuff and kind of being like crybabies. And right now Mars is squaring that. So you've had a lot of tension going on in the relationship department. Good news is that next year, Jupiter's gonna hit your moon, which can mean that there is more feeling solid, especially at a 2, in an intimate relationship, financially, in some kind of like partnership, still in opposition to Pluto. So you're still gonna see a lot of that stuff. And I wonder if it's just gonna be a conflict of values or challenges revolving around, you know, like what one person is prioritizing and the other person isn't. And Jupiter hitting your moon generally is pretty good, but the opposition to Pluto might really show you which way it's going to go. And you were born with moon square Pluto, you know, so you also see relationship challenges with that as well. His chart, look at him, October 21st, 1980, Cancer rising, which is your descendant, moon in Leo. You guys have the same, moon in Aries. And then he's also got the sun in Libra. My God, look at all these planets in his 4th house. What happened with his family? There's a lot of relationship karma here. Sun conjunct Pluto, so lots of like ego issues and issues with family dynamics and relationships that might not have been so healthy. He's also got Saturn conjunct Juno, so that could be delayed marriage and issues with relationships in the family. Saturn in opposition to the moon. He's the moon. Partners are Saturn. So that Aries moon in opposition to Saturn, it could be long distance relationships, or, you know, he may not have felt like he had a nurturing kind of loving family environment, or issues with women. And that plays out in his relationships. And then he's also got, you know, he's got exalted Saturn. So that's positive, but some challenges here. I kind of chuckled a little bit earlier when you were like, I'm kind of like wondering, you know, if I should continue the relationship. I mean, girl, look, the South Node's sitting on his Venus. So over the next week, South Node Venus can be, doesn't matter where it is in the chart, a time where we're releasing and letting go of something we once valued, or we're letting a woman go, or they're ditching us, or there's a change in our finances and our values, and it's all coming through communication. So I think about how Sun will conjunct Venus in the South Node, where he's not going to be able to communicate or relay how he feels very well, or somebody might be like, hey, I'm like 1 foot out the door. And then Mercury will do the same thing, and he intuitively might realize like something is up, or like, you know, maybe somebody's gonna like, you know, cut me loose. And Saturn's been dancing on his moon, so even though that's not a fun transit, it's important because the moon represents who he is. And the moon in Aries is, I'm fearless, I'm ready to go, let's do it. And a lot of his identity might be tied up in his career, or it might be kind of tied up in, you know, independence. And I think Saturn moon is saying he needs to now merge in a very public way with another person and initiate new beginnings. The 10th house is his career and his status, right? Like, I am partnered, or I do want to get married, or I want to focus on my career. But it's also about the home life that he creates with another person. So a lot of it's going to be like whether or not you guys are like, hey, are we moving in together? Are we going to do these things? He's also coming into his Saturn opposition. So like a lot of this stuff that's coming up now is still going to play out going into the beginning of next year. And with his moon being at a 3, it's like he may feel like, well, I have to choose between, you know, my partnership and my freedom, or my career and my relationship. And like With Saturn and Neptune on his moon, there is definitely going to be a sense of him being a little bit more independent and work focused, and he may kind of segue away from relationships next year. Just some food for thought. We look also at what's going on with his natal Saturn. So, you know, not only do you have the Saturn opposed Saturn, but recently Mars has been going through there, and now Mars is squaring Jupiter. It's just like there's so much stuff changing emotionally and with him that I can see down the road there is going to be an improvement, and I feel like it starts with the Mercury retrograde that's going to be in his 5th house of dating, and that could be either having heart-to-heart, working through things, because that retrograde will trine Jupiter in his 1st house, so he should be able to kind of be like, let's work on things. And it will also trine Saturn, so it can really improve like date nights and like romance and intimacy and like traveling together, you know? But there could be a change in direction with relationship then too. But the real buildup is actually going to be in the end of December, early January. Has anybody else looked at these transits yet? Have you guys seen that there's going to be Mars and Venus are going to conjunct the sun? Mars is exalted in Capricorn. You know, the sun is about kind of authority and commitment and long-term stuff. Venus is about relationships. So I'm looking at right at the beginning of January, you know, like the relationships could actually really improve, and it's going to oppose Jupiter. So it means he needs to make the time, he needs to be considerate and caring, and like for the relationship to flourish, he has to kind of get with the program. So things can get better at the beginning of the year. But at the end of the day, we can talk about the transits, we can talk about even the synastry until the cows come home, but I really feel like the only way to know whether or not this is going to like have liftoff, I think, is going to be more your guys's composite chart. But look at this. Your South Node Sun Saturn sits on his Mercury Uranus. So it's about helping him clear out issues in the heart space and like being vulnerable, right? All right, let's look at the composite. I'm going to look at the midpoint composite, but usually when I do like full-blown relationship readings, which I do, so I'll look at transit seats chart, I look at the midpoint composite, which is very reliable, and then I look at the Davidson composite, which if you guys haven't seen that, you got to check those out because you do not want to sleep on the Davidson. So together, your midpoint chart is Aries rising, Sun and Scorpio. Look at that, Sun and Mercury conjunct. Sun and Venus conjunct, and then you've got the Moon in Gemini. So off the top of my head, I don't even have to look at the transits. I'm like, oh, there's been eclipses and retrogrades on the ascendant where both individuals realize this spring changes needed to be made. And obviously, if you have Sun and Venus conjunct, there is love there. It's great for a composite chart, but it is in Scorpio, so you guys have to clear out long-standing relational or intimacy issues. Uranus is also on your moon, which rules your home. So what I was seeing in his chart was next year, it's like, are we coming together and building a home? And with Uranus hitting your guys' composite moon, there could be a lot of like chaotic emotions and communication and fluctuations and changes with, finances and your values. But Jupiter is in the 4th house. It's been trining your Venus and your natal Jupiter. So both parties have to change. But next year, you're going to see some very significant things happen to this chart. Mars is the ruler. So I'm thinking about, okay, you guys have your Mars return with all that great Capricorn stuff in January. Things can actually be improving. You're getting more serious. And then boom, Saturn comes into a square with your Mars where both parties need to be held accountable for what they're committing to working on and changing. And then Saturn is going to come into conjunction with your ascendant in June. And that's going to start to square stuff in the 4th house. So you actually have to be like, okay, where are we going? What are we doing? And also, how are we both actively working on letting go of old relationship habits and really showing up for each other in a healthier way? Because you got this Saturn-Pluto in the 7th where old relationship ghosts can cause problems, old perspectives of what we saw growing up as, children, of how our families were and how they were relationally can also kind of factor into some of this stuff as well. So putting that all together, this isn't spelling out doom or gloom, but your Uranus opposition, Mercury in opposition to Uranus, the way that you guys are communicating is not working. That's definitely what I can see. And it is going to hit an opportunity to reassess this in November. You can build back stronger together in December and January, but you're really having to hold each other accountable next year. And there's nothing definitively in your chart saying the relationship has to end. But certainly Pluto in opposition to your moon is like, you could go like, am I crazy or am I just getting to where I can't tolerate some of these dramatic kind of issues with another person any longer. And only you can decide. But I know that as you get into next year and you start seeing, you know, Pluto off of your Mars, off of the opposition with your moon, and then eclipses in your first house, you're going to be more like, I got to do what I got to do for me. And you're more willing to make changes in relationships if need be. And maybe you'll see from November on with Jupiter retrograde in your 7th house, that's the time that you're actually going to start to do that. But relationships get so much better once Pluto's no longer opposing your moon. So you have that to look forward to as of the beginning of the year. Uranus on your North Node too. So kind of erraticness going on with people that you're dating, and also kind of feeling a little antsy with Saturn and Neptune going into Aries, where you're like, I want to get settled, maybe I want to get married, you know, I want to buy a house, or I want to have kids, and you're looking to kind of build that, and you're like, well, where is this going with this relationship? If it's not working, don't waste the Jupiter in your 7th house transit, because you will find it's going to be very strong in the spring, and it'll hit your moon, you know, next summer. So hopefully that's going to be about a really great merger with somebody who you can like do life with. So hopefully he gets it together. Good luck. We got Raina. Let's see. There she is. What's up, Raina? And then after we take Raina, I got to plug in a couple charts, and I'll give you guys a little bit of like a drink and a snack break while I do that, and then we'll keep going. All right, so we've got Raina here. Let's look at her question. She's September 17th, 78. Cancer rising with a moon in Aries, and her sun is in Virgo. And she says, oh, hold on. Is this a different Raina? I guess it is. Hold on. Yeah, it is. Okay. Hey, Raina. I want to make sure I have the right queen. Hold on. This is, oh, wait a second. Is this her? Oh, no, that is you. I'm reading all the dates that you sent me. Apologies. Okay, this is the right chart. So she says, I've had a few readings with you on my career. You mentioned I was going to have a job change from 9/17/24 to 9/17/25. So on 8/21/25, which was not that long ago, let's go look at the transits then, the 21st. On 8/21/25, I had to resign due to ongoing harassment that I experienced over a year with the CEO's sister HR manager. I decided to file a lawsuit against the company on 8/22. Girl, you didn't waste any time. Good for you. That Aries moon. And I believe I have enough evidence and witnesses. 8/22. So why did the job end? That is the question. Well, probably the moon being your chart ruler, it's in the 10th house of work where there's karmic conflict, Saturn with women at work, moon, and it's 0 degrees, which is like all out war. And Neptune is there too. So it's like you going like, this is wrong, or, you know, this is, I'm being more or less like kind of cast out or, you know, mistreated, and going and seeking some legal support. Neptune. That sucks. I'm sorry. You also had on that same day, the moon was conjunct Mercury. So there was unexpected conversations that was going to kind of impact your finances. But look, Venus and Jupiter are going to be hovering around your 2nd house throughout this year. It's also your Virgo sun. You know, so Uranus is in Gemini, job change, because that's 10th house to your sun, and it's in the 12th, so it's things you didn't see coming. And also the eclipses are going to be coming up for you very close to your sun, and opposing stuff that's going to be obviously like Saturn in the 9th. So I don't know how the communication is going to be with the attorneys, like documents, communication with the lawyers, like getting written witnesses' testimonies may be a little difficult, because Virgo is going to represent your coworkers and communication, and whether or not they're showing up and willing to talk to your lawyer or kind of give feedback if there's fear of intimidation or retaliation. That would be number one. That's something that I would have some concerns about. So if we look at the day that did you file the lawsuit on the 2nd, or is that the day that you decided to, you know, be like, I'm going to look for somebody? because it looks like on the 22nd, this was the new moon, and it was squaring Uranus, where you're like, okay, this thing suddenly happened. This is what I'm going to do about it. Good for you. New moon was really close to Saturn, so it was about, you know, confronting other people, and it was trining the 7th house, so it was a good time to be like, yeah, screw you guys. This is not okay. And unfortunately, that's part of the karmic lesson here. And Saturn going retrograde on top of your south node, I do think is about going and seeking some kind of support, whether it's an astrologer, a therapist, you know, an old coworker, a lawyer. So let's talk positive. Positive is that the eclipse that you're about to have in Pisces is in theory in your 9th house. So people who are Cancer and Cancer risings, it's kind of like, okay, sure, you're going to hear some pop astrologers go, you're going to be at an airport, you're traveling, you're graduating, maybe. But I actually feel like this is very positive if you're going through legal matters, because not only is it in your 9th house of legal matters and connecting and feeling supported with them, you're the moon, but also it's trining Jupiter in your sign. And Jupiter is about wisdom. It's also going to be about emotions. It can be tied to, you know, emotional damages or other things like that. And Jupiter is intercepted through the rulership in your 6th. So it's also about being like, I need somebody to kind of like hear me out and represent me for where I have been mistreated. Also sextiles your sun. So it's not a negative eclipse by any means. And then the second one is gnarly. And this is where I think I probably have at this point at least a dozen Cancer rising clients that I can think of, at least. Because I'm like, what is going on? I've noticed a theme here. They're all going through legal drama. Well, guess what? The North Node's in your 9th house. So if you're not traveling, if you're not studying, if you're not publishing or teaching, you're going to have legal drama. Saturn's there, that's why. So the second one is not friendly because, number one, it's in Virgo. So a lot of Virgos are going to be like, kind of like, okay, on mental overload. And it's a South Node eclipse. So it's about having to deal with the past, right? And anything emotional connected to work. And it opposes Saturn. Saturn is the people who you're going up against. This is why I'm like, communication may not be great. Make sure you're trying to really solidify who's going to speak on your behalf and you've got people who have your back, because I do feel like it's going to be harder to get support the later that you get into September, and you may be a little flustered with the eclipse in opposition to your moon where you're like, okay, like, what am I supposed to do? And I would say, I'm not a lawyer, I'm an astrologer, listen to your lawyer, but I would look at this personally and be like, I am not communicating with my ex-employer. If they try to send me documents, if they try to call me, if they try to reach out to me for a comment or to negotiate something, I would be like, hell no, I'm not answering that call. And it's about using a sense of, you know, intuitive awareness about what you should and should not respond to. That also means that there can be lots of correspondence that you're going through, things they've said to you, stuff that you have maybe on your work emails, you know, personal documents and files and things. And this could be about somebody speaking on your behalf, because the sun and the moon are about shining a light on something where there's been some dark deeds done by the women at work. But that'll start a 6-month cycle. So that's not going to get sorted out until March of next year. Now, I can think of 2 times where there's the possibility that there could be some agreement or settlement that's being made, maybe 3. One would be when Mercury turns retrograde in November, where you're finally getting all of the details and the information out, basically out in the open, and you're probably going through, I don't know, maybe you guys are going through depositions, maybe there's going to be discovery, and they're trying to kind of figure out, you know, scheduling for this potential lawsuit and whether or not it's actually going to go to court, and if you have to go through like arbitration. So I don't know if that's a thing, but that could happen in Sagittarius, because I kind of see the 6th house as like trying to mediate things. Which will be frustrating because it's going to square your sun. Okay, so watch for like changes with like court dates and like legal things there, and also getting things in order when it comes to work, or getting back to work can be a theme. And then another one could be when planets are going through your 8th house, where there's going to be eclipses, which could signify something coming your way that's owed to you. And that's ruled by Uranus. It's squaring Uranus, so it does mean that it's about challenging a company. That'll be in February. And then the next one will be when Mercury turns retrograde in Pisces, and it's going retrograde in the 9th house with the North Node, and it's in opposition. So it's about kind of finalizing maybe like a legal situation and like where you stand. Mercury retrograde in Pisces is not fun. The retrogrades on the South Node is bringing up the past and kind of shoring up legal stuff, ruled by Jupiter, trining Jupiter. Thank God Jupiter's in your sign this year. That's the one saving grace, is that you're going to have legal support. And frankly, I don't think a lawyer
would take this case if they didn't think that there is a pretty much like a slam dunk. So if you have proof, if you have witnesses, things like that, and I just think Jupiter trining everything is going to provide you some security. But make no mistake, the lunar eclipse that you're about to have on your midheaven is huge. It's about being like, I'm finally, you know, wrapping up this storyline of all of this like crap with people at work. And, you know, maybe with the Jupiter trine is like, it's stressful, but you're like emotionally relieved and you have faith, right, Jupiter, that you're going to kind of see this thing through. Saturn opposing your sun does make me feel like they're going to play hardball with money, with what they feel like they owe you. And so there can be like this dragging out until the end of the year or even spring of next year to finally have this finalized. But look, you with having Saturn and Neptune on your moon, you were going to be removed from work. That was going to happen. With the retrogrades, especially because what does it want to do? It wants you to start something new, and it wants you to be in a position where you're not being bullied by older women, Saturn, Neptune on your moon. And it's about building emotional resilience and sticking up for yourself and being like, I'm not just going to take it and be a victim. I'm actually going to be like a hero or like a warrior. So when Saturn and Neptune meet in February, that'll be a time to watch, because probably you're off to some new, you know, job, or you have a new status or title, and like, you can find yourself still in a situation where you're still dealing with kind of like ornery older women. But Saturn is about, you know, what's owed to you and like the karmic payback. And Pluto is opposing your Jupiter. That's part of this too. So there is some sense of wanting to deny stuff. I've seen other Cancer risings having like accidents on the job, and like, you know, the job not wanting to pay for it or not being able to get compensation. So until Pluto leaves that opposition with Jupiter, I think there's going to be a lot of resistance to you getting paid. But getting paid will come more from Saturn and Neptune hitting your moon, which will be close to the beginning of the year, and Jupiter going into your second house. So you're looking at sometime between February and I would say July of 2026. So it's not like I'm going to get a slam dunk and get a settlement. No, I think that you're actually going to be actively going back to work somewhere while you're going through this, and you're probably going to drag it out because they're going to, you know, want to wait as long as they can to give you, you know, something, and then you would most likely be compensated. But Saturn and Neptune on your moon means that there's going to be people who are going to lie and distort some of their behavior, and I would say don't be surprised by that. Don't allow that to be something that's going to like agitate you, because evading responsibility is very Saturn Neptune on the moon, and it's also about using a little bit more cautiousness, you know, as you go forward and really getting to know the employers that you're going to be working with. But you know, Saturn hitting your moon, you'll get something, because Saturn's also connected to your 8th house, and Jupiter moving into your Jupiter return, I think is very obvious that there is going to be compensation as it trines your moon. So yeah, I do think you'll be compensated. Sorry to hear you're going through that. Been there, done that. That's not fun. Hopefully things go well. Pick up a brown candle. Get a court case candle. That'll definitely, I think, help. All right, we've got Dannon. We've got Christy, Jeremiah, Mandy, Adriana. I got to put your guys' charts in. So give me like a few minutes, and we will get you guys in just a second. All right, so we're going to start with Dannon, and after that, we're going to take Marissa. So that's who's next up. So let's take a look at Dannon, who's born January 2nd, 79, 5:17 p.m. in Hackensack. Cancer rising with what looks like the moon in Pisces and the sun in Capricorn. All right, so Dannon says, I came back into contact with this, hold on a second, came back into contact this past week with someone I had worked with before. Wondering if you see a relationship coming up for me or the potential for one, because I feel like something could start this month. I have a spiritual business online with mostly tarot, psychic, etc., but I want to get more into I want to start talking more about my other interests and showing my face more. Is it a good time for that? Looking to move? Do you see that? I want to travel, make more money. Is there potential? Girl, you got to pick one thing. What do you want? You want to know about what's going on with work, with your relationships, traveling. Which one's most important? You got Jupiter on your ascendant, so you're like, I want to do it all. And the eclipses are on your moon, so you're like, I want to travel. I see that. Which one do you want me to focus on, or do you want me to tell you which one I think is most significant? Want to travel more and make more money. Is there potential for those things to be coming up? Want to know mostly about relationships because I feel like I just fell in love. I'm going to go with that. Relationship stuff is going to continue to be a theme towards the end of the year. But something to kind of think about, and like this is a perfect example, I think, of Jupiter energy, because, you know, Jupiter is tied to Sagittarius. It's tied to also, Pisces. As a 9th house Pisces moon with the North Node hitting your moon right now, you're like, I want to travel, okay? And that transit happens only every 18 and a half, 19 years. This is also opening up, broadening your perspective about life. And Saturn is there. So you're also like, I want to teach people, or I want to travel, or, I want to publish something, or I want to be more open and optimistic about relationships. So all of those things kind of apply. You need to see some really strong things going on with your natal Saturn for there to be some relationship stuff happening, and I'm seeing it to an extent. Positive is that the South Node is conjunct Saturn. And so wherever Saturn is, because that rules your relationships, is going to tell me a lot about your relationships in general and how you meet them, where they come from, that kind of stuff. So if Saturn's in the 3rd house, really relationships start with communication, the mind, and like learning from each other. And it's in Virgo, so it's talking to, right, Saturn retrograde, somebody that you worked with in the past. So cha-ching, the eclipses, are impacting that. The South Node is impacting that. And that's why somebody from the past is returning. And when that happens, all that Virgo energy trines into Capricorn. So it's highlighting like, oh, making more time for relationships. Great, which is important if you're, whole sign Capricorn, sun in the 7th. And then Jupiter is opposing that, where you're like, oh, I want more togetherness with this person. So that's all checking out. You're also going to see in the fall Jupiter in your 1st house, which makes you more wanderlust, emotional, sensitive, nurturing, is trining Saturn. So you're more optimistic about where relationships can go and grow. And you got Saturn and Neptune that are still conjunct in the 9th house. So there's a lot of, where do I want to go? I don't know, And also, you just said there's also a lot at a distance. Yes, because, well, you've got Saturn opposed Saturn. Right? So if relationships come in, it's got to be somebody from the past, Saturn South Node, and it's somebody who's further away. Even, I think the moon in opposition to Saturn, you're the moon, Saturn is other people. So that's showing that long distance relationships that are going to be primarily communication based or on the phone, and also like getting to know each other and your perspectives and your ideas. And not only are you in your Saturn opposition where you're like, man, I got to go further for relationships, but also you're in your nodal opposition where the transiting South Node's hitting your North Node, transiting North Node's hitting your South Node. I like that transit. I had that a couple years ago, and I was like, this is kind of cool because there's this feeling of past and present are kind of meeting, or past and future are meeting in the present. So there's a lot of, oh, people come back. Are they a part of my future? Or where am I going? What am I leaving behind? So I like the aspects of Jupiter playing with this, and it's all going to be about using your intuition, being tapped in. You've got a Scorpio ascendant degree, right? 20 degrees Cancer, so you sense that things are changing, And change can be a positive thing, and it can be shifting the way that you look at, you know, where you're going, how far you're willing to go, or look for love. I think that relationship stuff's going to get particularly interesting in the fall. So I say that because there will be a retrograde in your 5th house. So as like a Cancer rising, you know, Mars is going to go through your 5th house. Things get hot and steamy. Trines your Saturn, trines your Jupiter, majorly falling in love. Mercury will retrograde over your Venus, so there's going to be a sense of you reevaluating where you're at in your relationships, and it'll retrograde not only over your Venus of romance, 5th house, but it'll also come into conjunction with Venus, and it will conjunct Uranus. See, I look at this and it's kind of like you going like, am I finding out I'm pregnant? Am I willing to move for love? Is there more in-depth kind of intimate conversations about what we want? Are we saying I love you for the first time? Like that kind of stuff can be happening in the fall. And it's the setup for next year as the Sun, Venus, Jupiter, Mercury, and Juno all cross your Sun and go into the 7th house. Like, I think, personally, Cancer risings stand to have an amazing beginning of the year in relationships. And the more that you're kind of falling into the feminine nature of Jupiter in your sign, that's like, I bring it in, I'm willing to travel, I'm optimistic, I'm loving, I'm nurturing. You're going to see that really nice Capricorn energy show up, and it's going to be like, oh, like that's a man, you know? And it can be a really great kind of relationship turning point as all of this sextiles your Venus and Saturn is trining your Venus. So, you know, if you want travel and relationships, the universe is giving it to you. If you want to be teaching and preaching and sharing your philosophy with the world, Jupiter is giving that to you. And perhaps through some of the experiences that you're having with relationships, travel, and your belief systems shifting, you're able to tap into that intuitively and kind of inspire other people. And I think it can all be kind of like woven together. But next year, when Saturn goes into Aries, and it'll be more the tail end of like 2026 going into 2027, it's going to start opposing your Pluto. So inevitably, somebody's going to have to move. And I think you guys might be talking about that and reevaluating where you stand in a relationship sense in the fall, but I see nothing but good things, personally. So you have to let me know what happens. Come back, we'll do his synastry reading. We'll look at his chart with yours, and we'll let the comment section dictate and determine which way this is going to go. She says, I'll move. Yeah, usually when you have like Venus in aspect to Jupiter, or if you've got, you know, your chart ruler and your 7th house ruler in opposition, it's a long distance relationship. Pretty common. All right, so we have got Christy. Christy's born August 28th, 82 in Ellsworth, Kansas, Libra rising, Sun in Virgo, and Moon is in Sag. All right, so Christy says, recently lost my job this week. Sorry to hear that. But I've also been working on creative projects the last month and posted a few of them on TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook. Nothing really taking off yet. But I have a Venus return on the eclipse, and I just had a solar return. Jupiter conjunct my natal MC with the Virgo new moon. Can you tell me what all this means for me energetically to connect to storylines? I don't know if I'm being blessed in a new career path with my spiritual music videos, soulmate sugar daddy helping me out financially. I love that for you. Single 16 years without a current partner, or going back to the humdum 9 to 5 when will my finances increase? I'm not an OnlyFans kind of girl, but I got cute feet. Pisces in the 6th house themes. I'm still laughing about the spiritual sugar daddy. That's great. There's some cool stuff going on in your chart. So, you know, obviously eclipses are kind of like wild cards. So there is this sense of like, yes, an eclipse can come through your 6th house and you can suddenly lose a job, right? Especially like a full moon. So the fact that this has been kind of happening here recently is the full moon. Full moon lunar eclipse in the whole sign 6 is, okay, well, that's the end of one schedule. You know, like I'm phasing that out. And maybe reflect on what's been happening over the last 6 months. You know, Saturn and Neptune in your 6th house, work could have been draining, your heart's not in it, emotionally it's not great for you, you're working with people that are working against you, and all of that stuff has been in conjunct and quincunx both your Saturn in Libra, which is like the need to create and refine things and make things beautiful and have structure, and also Pluto. So I don't think a lot of this was resonating with you in general, personally. And then you take into consideration, not only has that been in Pisces, but now it's retrograding back into Pisces, Saturn and Neptune. So it's finishing off the job, and it's squaring your moon, which rules your 10th house. So you're going, okay, my job changed, my scheduling's changing. Great, let's get creative. Let's start making videos. Let's start making music. And let's find a new way to really put that 29-degree moon to work, which means you actually can be really, really good with media, communications, anything revolving around social media. You don't see it right now because Saturn and Neptune are squaring your moon. But what it wants you to do is come up with a schedule, right? Content schedule, posting schedule. It's also trying to get you to think about new skills and new ways that you can, bring money in through your third house. I think you're gonna have a pretty strong period. Like as you get into October and November, you're gonna see Mars, the Sun, Mercury go into your second house. And like, yes, Libra risings need to be mindful that Mercury will retrograde from the third house into the second. So like I'm Libra rising, I'm looking at this going, all right, since the retrogrades in the 11th house, I've been like, well, what new memberships can I create? What new content can I create? What do the people want? And I've been trying to make different, content and videos, knowing that I'm going to go into this retrograde in November, and I'm going to go, what's actually working, right? Like what's making money? What's successful? What do they like? What do they not like? And now then I will scale back on things. And I would encourage you to do the same thing. I do think that you might feel like certain outlets are performing better than others. Certainly, there's no shame in the game. Saturn and Neptune in the 6th house is like, well, I can do spiritual work, I can do creative work, or I can like take feet pics and nobody has to see my face. It's squaring your moon. Nobody has to know that it's you. And the Jupiter transit in your career is trining all of this. But really it's about doing work that feels like more emotionally in alignment. So do I think you have to go back to like your 9 to 5? Not necessarily, not yet. I would say if finances provide, I would give this until November to see how some of the creative stuff that you're doing is taking off, and also to allow there to be enough time to start seeing Jupiter and Saturn trining each other, where if you do have new media things that you're doing, it can actually relieve you of having to do all of this work that feels energetically draining. So I would be giving this until about the end of October, beginning of November, and then let the retrograde do its thing in your second house. Certainly if money's tighter and you feel like you got to go back to work, the trine to Saturn in your third house is you'd be employed, and Jupiter is going to be in your 10th house all year. But I want you to think about what happened 10 years ago or 12 years ago. So back in 2013, when you had Jupiter transit in your 10th house, could have, should have manifested as like a job or a career or a status change. Back then, Uranus was in your 6th house. So it was spontaneous things that were changing. Maybe work was, fluctuating and it wasn't as stable. Saturn is giving you structure. Like as a Libra rising, I really love this right now. What did she say? I was just released from prison, and what? Figuring out how to do, getting back into work, figuring out also how to like take care of a home or get established, or Saturn and Neptune are there. So it's definitely touching on themes of like what's healthy and what's productive. But knowing that Saturn and Neptune will finally come out of the square at your moon at the beginning of the year, I think it's getting you out of that job. And I think you're fine playing with some of these media kind of content things until about November. And then even in March of next year, you're going to have retrogrades that are going to be happening in your 6th house that could also get you back into work. So there's several periods where there could be restructuring at work. And as Libra rising, you'll have that second eclipse in your 12th house. This is kind of interesting, right on your Mercury. Let me ask you a question. With Saturn and Neptune square your moon, and with the nodes that have been hanging out in your 12th house, are you making videos where people can't see your face? Just wondering. Because Mars is in the 2nd house, you can make money with your voice. Certainly you're very creative, and I think you can get really crafty with some of the stuff that you're doing with media. But I look at this eclipse right on your Mercury, and you're like, yes, I am. Okay. So they can see your face, or your face is hidden. Because I look at your chart and I'm like, oh, your face looks hidden to me. But the second eclipse on the 21st is going to be right on your Mercury. Great day for downloads. I'm feeling to put my put my voice out there, but not music. This eclipse is going to be a really good day for downloads, insights, intuitively, starting new projects and going, okay, I'm committed to this new schedule that I'm trying to build. Yes, it squares your moon, and it's really pushing you to put yourself out there. Okay, it's all AI videos. Okay, so pay attention to the 20th, 21st, 22nd. I think you need some time to kind of reintegrate some of your ideas, and I think new ideas will flow, and it's really good for creativity, and it's also Really good for getting more traction at work. And Venus, your chart ruler, will be on your sun. So I think that this could be a really good time to like get ready to make an announcement. But I don't think you have to worry about the 9 to 5 thing till maybe about November. At the latest, I would say the eclipses and the retrogrades in March. But give it a chance. With Jupiter in your 10th house, expanding your career and being more optimistic, the trine to Saturn, you know, some of the things that you're kind of pulling back on or that you're not doing as much of or jobs that you're leaving gives you the opportunity to do things that are going to be more fulfilling. So I say, give it all you got. Worst case scenario, you don't have to do OnlyFans. You could sell feet pics, right? Well, you've got Jupiter trine the North Node. I mean, you could, but I don't think that's necessarily what you're going to want to do. You're here to be a star, baby. Your moon's at 29 degrees. And it's sextile Saturn and Pluto. So this is really, I think, learning new skills. If you're doing stuff that's like AI oriented, it's about learning new skills and finding ways to be able to incorporate that into your media and see if it's actually taking off. Hopefully that's helpful. A spiritual sugar daddy. I love that. That's great. All right, we've got Marissa and then Mandy and Adriana. What's up, Marissa? Every time I see that, I'm like, Jeremiah? And then I'm like, no, that's not. That's Marissa. So sorry. Sorry to Jeremiah for doxing him on the internet. All right, so we've got August 25th, 84 in the Bronx. Aries rising, sun in Virgo, moon in Leo. You're welcome, Christy. Candace, tell me anything you think I might need to know or look out for with this eclipse pertaining to love, money, career, or just life in general. Your insight and guidance is beyond welcome and appreciated. Well, thank you. Well, obviously, you know, you're a Virgo, so the eclipses are significant. I think maybe not as significant as they're going to be down the road because they're going to start getting closer to the conjunctions or the oppositions to your Mercury and your Sun. But I think off the top of my head, you know, Uranus is opposing your Mars. It's not exact, it will be next year, but this is definitely shaking things up when it comes to you versus relationships with other people. And technically Mars is in the 8th house, so it's kind of hidden here, and it represents like other people's money, passion, sex, you know, security, and there's like this feeling of wanting to break free from being indebted to other people. That could be credit cards, that could be old relationships, that could also mean you're communicating and feeling more spontaneous with learning and traveling, and that there are some fluctuations that are going to be impacting your finances. And it's within range to start impacting your chart ruler, which is pretty big. Your Mars is at a 4, so it's going to be about home and family matters and expenses pertaining to your cost of living. Also changes with travel plans, expenses, education, so that's something to think about. Chiron on your ascendant retrograde, you know, healing. You're not really seeing it yet, but it's going to start to cross over next year and oppose your Pluto, where it's going to show you where you're having to heal things and change the storyline of relationships with people that can be challenging, karmically limiting, or toxic. And then I also think about how the South Node is still kind of dancing with your Venus. So it's showing you what you need to let go of in terms of unhealthy relationship habits. And that's going to be a huge theme in the next week. Even outside of the eclipse, I'll get to that in a second, but all of the conjunctions and the Kazimis and stuff are really prominent. So like if you look at the 10th on of September, South Node, Mercury, Sun around your Venus is like showing you where there's some big relationship clean out or clean up going on. And then there's a Kazimi on September 13th, conjunct your Venus. So I'm thinking like maybe the 12th of September through the 21st of September is health changes, job changes, relationship clearing out, and focusing on healthier habits in relationships and like holding other people accountable for their shit. The eclipse is going to be at 29 degrees, the second eclipse. And that one is going to in conjunct or quincunx your ascendant. You got to watch your health here. This is also about challenges with your pets or issues with your schedule, and where there needs to be definitive changes to your habits and like how you're working out, how you're eating, how you're working. And usually when I see an eclipse in conjunct the ascendant, especially at 29, digestional issues with your diet can come up. And we also have Mars at 29, right on your Pluto. What in God's name is happening in your relationships right now? You know, I don't know if it's with people at work. I don't know if it's just people in general, but 29, 29, you know, at least Venus is going to be on your sun. So it's like, if there is stuff going on, you're going to be protected in that sense, where you're going to go, well, I have somebody who's willing to help me, or I have a good healthcare team, or, you know, I've got the support or the love of my cat. But you're really feeling under fire with some of these 29s aspecting your ascendant, and also Mars conjunct your Pluto. This will be setting forth what's going to be basically a 6 to like 18 month cycle, where you're going to be working through karmic issues in relationships and cutting ties with people who aren't good for you, that are actually making you feel worse, or work that's making you feel worse. And it's having you really focus on how to communicate and tell people, like, you know, what isn't working or what's other people's stuff. I think I would get into the habit, knowing that Chiron's going to hit your ascendant next year, knowing that Saturn and Neptune are going back into Aries, that you have to become incredibly comfortable. And I know you have it in you because you have a Leo moon and you've got, you know, Saturn and Pluto in your 7th house, of being like, that's not my shit, that's your shit. And just because you're having a crisis doesn't mean you need to take it out on me. Or just because you're going through something doesn't mean I need to deplete myself to heal you. So there's something going on there that I feel like is very significant. And it's trining Uranus, which is retrograde on your ascendant, where some people might be like, oh my God, she's like mouthing off, or there's like stuff coming up, or she's just kind of popping off at people. But I actually really feel like it's positive, because you're speaking up and you're like, nope, I need a change. And I don't know if you're changing your routine or you're changing something about your schedule. I've been back at the gym and changed my eating. My job announced a forced reduction coming soon. I have a mommy makeover on October 27th, and I decided to go back to school. I've been dealing with my ex again. Health stuff. I mean, obviously the transits in October are actually really great. There's like some Saturn Pluto stuff going on, or some Saturn Mars stuff going on. So I like that. But I do think that this is about you going, I'm so consumed with my health and my habits and what I'm working on, that like, if other people are coming into my life and they're bringing toxic behavior that's going to impact my health, it's not going to fly. That's just my 2 cents. I'm not worried about the Pisces eclipse. It's in your 12th house. It trines Jupiter. Get some sleep. That's not a big deal in your chart. It also trines Saturn. It's going to be more reflective and emotional for you. Maybe some wild dreams, or you're getting back into meditation, or there is a sense of you really taking downtime when you need it. But this one is a little bit more tricky. And I feel like it's actually going to show you very quickly whether or not things are going well with your ex. And Venus rules your ex, and Venus is on your sun. So of course they're back, and they might be like really pushy, and you're like, is this good for my schedule? Is he eating into my, you know, routine? Don't let other people kind of throw you off kilter or throw your balance off. And then you will also find that, you know, I think the ex is back because the South Node is there. There's no guarantee that they're going to hang around and that they're going to stay. You're going to have to sort that out in November when you see some of the retrogrades, and you're going to have to decide whether or not, you know, they're coming back and actually walking the walk and talking the talk. Because when Mars is in your 7th house, I'm going to tell you something. Men will tell you whatever the fuck they want to tell you, just to convince you to partner with them. That's just the way that it works. Especially with Mars and Pluto, it can be like really hot and heavy. But that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to stay, right? Because Venus rules Mars. It's at a critical degree. Venus is fallen in Virgo. Somebody will be around, but I think you'll get to about November and you'll be like, oh, he told me all these things. Is he doing it? Like, is this healthy for me to be around? And there's going to be this new profound sense of, I think, better self-esteem with Uranus on your North Node going into your 2nd house, that you're like, no, I'm not the same person anymore. I'm not going to go around and around with you again. And then you'll have to see how this plays out going into next year when Saturn and Neptune start opposing anything in Libra. But it could still take you some time until 2028 when Saturn opposes Pluto. So be careful how intertwined you get. And your love life's going to be fine, especially going into, like, you know, the summertime. You're going to see some Jupiter transits. So, you know, let me know how things go with that guy. Maybe come back and we can look at his synastry, because there's something going on with that Venus that makes me feel like he's around, but it's really a test to see, like, is it healthy for you to have him in your life? People are upset or bothered that I've been focusing on me, no longer shift my schedule to accommodate anyone else, and people are getting pissed. Break out your violin, play them a song. Very much Aries vibes. I think it's cool that, like, you're a late degree Aries and Saturn and Neptune are in Aries, and you're like, nope, this is my peace. Like, I'm not going to let this, like, disturb things. And I think that's also a great manifestation of having eclipses in your 6th house. That's like, part of my physical routine is for my health, but also it's for my mental health, and it's like the time that I have away from other people. And if people can't respect my boundaries, Saturn has been in Aries, like, they can get bent. And the retrograde's in your 5th, right? So it's like big main character energy next year with how you look, how you carry yourself, you know, your life in general. And I feel like I would maintain that, and I would be protecting and guarding my health above everything with the eclipses and Chiron on my ascendant. Hopefully that's helpful. All right, who else do we have? We've got Mandy and then Adriana. What's up, Mandy? All right, Mandy, you're July 15, 95, 4:15 p.m. in Redwood City, Scorpio rising, moon in Pisces, sun in Cancer. Ooh, look at all that water in that chart. You're going to like these eclipses. You're going to do just fine. How's your Saturn return treating you? What's up? No worries. We'll be back. We're going to be back for the next one. That's going to be in 2 weeks. And that eclipse is on your conjunct your ascendant. So I expect to see you there. All right, so Mandy says, Candace, I first want to start with saying I really appreciate your content. This Tuesday, I was caught off guard because someone who I had considered a best friend of mine who I work with was spreading lies about me at work, but thankfully I had proof that refuted her claims. I feel a huge sense of betrayal and taking some much needed time from work. I'm trying to show compassion for myself right now, but I'm finding it hard as I tend to internalize when bad things happen to me. My question is, will I see positivity in the near future? Of course, I'm going to work on my inner healing and have come up with a plan with my therapist. Sorry, I know it's very Scorpio rising of me to ask. Don't be sorry. That's what I'm getting paid to do. Oh man, I love when I see Scorpio risings that have like Pisces and Cancer in their chart, because you're like, I'm intense, I'm sorry, it's too intense, and then there's like feeling bad. No. This is a cool example of how Scorpio rising is going through eclipses in Virgo, which is dealing with group dynamics and networking and friends, and the loss, South Node, and the betrayal that's kind of also happening when it's happening in your Placidus 10th house. So I'm sorry to hear that's happening. However, it makes sense to me. The storyline actually goes back to something way before this. So you may have recently gotten wind of the fact that somebody was running their mouth and talking shit or whatever. But I actually think it goes back to, well, a number of transits. For one, probably when we saw the South Node lunar eclipse in March, that was in your 10th house. And it was conjunct Chiron, so it was already saying it was going to bring up some kind of challenging or difficult group dynamics. And remember, this is 6 months down the road now that we're seeing more eclipses, so it's still a part of this. And it was very close to your Mars. Mars doesn't just rule you, it also rules the 12th house of enemies. So being that that got triggered, it was saying, hey, there was going to be a 6-month period of what's not working at work or what's going on with people or where there's some tension with other people, you know, so on and so forth. And that one opposed your Saturn, which could definitely take a swipe at you emotionally. And you've been in your Saturn return with the North Node conjunct your Saturn. What? So it's been a very heavy time for you emotionally. I'm glad to hear you're working with a therapist. All that stuff is sextiling your 7th house, and it's also been trining your Venus. So good. Retrogrades here also helped you really focus on some of the therapy stuff over the last 6 months. But now, as we get into the most recent eclipses, I feel like, you know, you're seeing one that's going to be very close to your moon. So your moon is intercepted in your chart, which basically means like, because Cancer is in the 8th house and it gets swallowed up by Leo and Gemini, your moon is very sensitive and it's kind of a blind spot for you. So it's hard for you, both as a Scorpio rising who has a tendency to hold grudges, and as a 4th house moon, you have an amazing memory. It's hard to forget the past. And it's also trining your Pluto and trining your 4th house. It's like the Scorpio rising gets like really angry and vengeful and upset. But then on the other end of the spectrum, it's really because they're really hurt. They're very sensitive. They don't trust people very easily. Right? So I see all of those things. Jupiter is also bringing this to your attention. So Jupiter is hitting your Venus, which is your 11th house ruler of friends. And it's also coming up on your sun. So it's about emotionally integrating and healing with a therapist. Now, a full moon lunar eclipse, very close to your moon, is kind of saying like, okay, we need to process this. We can't hold on to it. We can't be resentful. We have to work through it. And it's also a part of your Saturn return, where you have Saturn in the 4th house of emotional boundaries and healing in opposition to Chiron and Mars in the 10th house. And it's actually showing you like where being too emotionally vulnerable or not having boundaries in a professional sense can actually kind of lead you to a really dark place emotionally, or like maybe being in a situation where you're like, oh my God, I have to be away from home. So when you say you're taking time away from work right now to work through this and you're working with your therapist, exactly what you're supposed to be doing. Exactly. Because Mercury and the Sun and the South Node are all in the 10th house. You're like, nope, I'm not going to work. I'm focusing on this right now. I've got to be present with this. And that's trining out everything in your chart. Good. The real, I think, lesson here is also Mars has been going through Libra in your whole sign 12. So it's like where you're like, well, I thought people had my back and they weren't. And as you get into next year and you see Saturn and Neptune go back into Aries, you're going to have better boundaries with people at work, and you're going to be like, I'm not being nasty or negative or dismissive. I'm going to work because I'm here to work. And unfortunately, both because you have Chiron and Mars in the Placidus 10th house, there can be some conflict with other people work-wise. It's just kind of coming up. It's teaching you more emotional resilience and maintaining a sense of privacy, which Pluto on the ascendant wants as well. And your 11th house ruler of friends is Venus, and it's in the 8th house conjunct Mercury, which means there's going to be unexpected changes with female friends and relationships and things that they talk about or say that you're not aware of. It's intercepted. It's your blind spot. So really what it's trying to get you to do is to lean into that very powerful moon trine, the ascendant, moon trine, Mercury, Venus, and the sun, like intuitively. You know when something is off. So there can also be this sense of being like, well, I'm also frustrated with myself because, I trusted them, or, intuitively I felt something was going on and I didn't listen to it because I'm like, that's my friend. And now you're learning to be like, no, I got to listen to my gut. And it's hard when you're a Scorpio rising and you have Pluto on the ascendant and you got Cancer in your chart and Pisces in your chart. Feelings run very deep and it's really hard to kind of release and let go of things. And emotions are very heavy when you have some of these placements. Like, people underestimate water. I got into like a tiff with somebody on Twitter like a couple months ago where somebody was like talking about how amazing fire signs are. And of course I had to just kind of like add my 2 cents. And they were talking about which element is the best. And I was like, obviously it's water. And they were like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, it's the only element that can cut through stone. It comes in multiple forms. Like, it can heal, but it can also like flood people. And then everybody got into like a tiff in the comment section. Of course, it was like all the fire signs that were trying to like rain on my parade. But it reminds me of this, where I'm like, people underestimate how powerful water placements can be. So you can let that eat you alive, or you can allow it to be something that can be really healing, and you learn from the lessons and you're like, I'm not going to carry that resentment over. And continuing to work with a therapist also while Uranus is in your 7th house, I think is also great, because it's going to come back into a sextile with Jupiter. It's going to also help you kind of, learn how to be a little bit more indifferent with certain relationships and not take it personally, which Cancer in the 8th house can do. And I feel like positivity is coming. You may not really see it through the eclipse. A lot of Scorpio rising eclipses is like romance and dating and traveling. And like, no, yours is more like a Sag rising horoscope where it's like, no, you're at home and working through the feelings and, taking a lot of baths and, watching movies and meditating and having to come to terms with, kind of making your home like your Zen den where you're able to kind of heal. And I would be doing that. And I don't think you're really feeling like you're willing to get back in action probably until Mercury is popping back in, to your 10th house, or it's leaving the conjunction with your sun. I'd keep an eye out, because you may hear from that person, or you may hear something from an employer or a manager right around the Kazemi, around like the 12th or the 13th. There could be some kind of news that's coming up about what has happened, or, kind of people trying to cover their tracks with stuff that they have said. And then what you'll know is that Sun conjunct Jupiter this year is really good for your career. And the more that you're emotionally focusing on what's best for you, where you're working, who you're working with, the better that you're going to kind of embrace change. And there's still eclipses coming on your midheaven. So it's like, whether or not you stay at that job or not, I don't know. But I do think that down the road, when you see the solar eclipse conjunct your Mars, that's about empowerment and maybe going back into work the second half of September and being able to kind of be confident and having your head held high in how you're dealing with other people. And that's pretty much it. You'll see eclipses next year that are going to be impacting your 10th house as well. This one in particular in March. Okay, so come back around when some of that stuff happens if you have questions, but hopefully that's helpful for you. All right, so that was Mandy, and we have Adriana. Is anybody else's feed fuzzy, or is it just me? I don't know, maybe it's just me. It could be my iPad. Let's see. Christine says, thanks again. Felt directionless, wasn't positive. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Hopefully that was helpful. All right. Adriana says, can I please get a general reading? Anything that looks important, things coming up for me. 9/11/86, Red Bank, New Jersey in the AM. All right. So Venus is your chart ruler. So what you need to know is right now, Venus is moving through your 11th, which is great for networking, socializing, being around people. I would say get it out of your system, because the closer that you're getting to the solar eclipse, which is going to be on the 21st, you're not going to be feeling like you want to socialize much. So much of like the first 3 weeks of September for a chart like this is work, socializing, connecting with people, focusing on your health. That's it. Okay, so that's number one. Number two is that currently Pluto, which is hanging in your 4th house of home, is squaring your Venus. So this year looks like it's been testing you a little bit between challenges in either home and family dynamics and resources, or some challenges that are going on when it comes to, speculative investments or things kind of connected to dating. And you will continue to see Pluto square your Venus clear into next year. That really gets active like January and February. So I would go and learn about Pluto coming into a square with your Venus. Can be a little complicated with finances. And then as a Virgo, the eclipses are happening in Virgo and Pisces. So you've been dealing with Saturn retrograde in your 6th house of work and health and wellness, opposing your sun. So you might feel like it's been work, all work, and you haven't had a lot of time to focus on your goals or your social life. And now you're coming out of that opposition. Great. Saturn's also been opposing Mercury. So it looks like you've been trying to kind of improvise or make changes to your health and your habits, or even your schedule to have better mental health. I think to be a Libra rising with having Sun and Mercury in your 12th house is like bad habits can come out to play. And they could be mental, they could be work habits, they could be dietary habits. But I definitely look at this and I'm like, girl, you are literally in like the final like turning point right now of what has, in my opinion, has been what looks like a very hellish last couple of years. Not only has Saturn been in your 6th house opposing your Sun and your Mercury, where it's been a lot of, okay, what is and is not healthy, or what's working against me, or am I the problem? But it's also been squaring Uranus and also your moon and slightly Neptune. So it's a lot of communication stuff. What is and is not healthy with communication? How can you get into the flow of maybe releasing some fears revolving around work, connecting with siblings, communicating and telling people what you need, and also making more time for travel or learning. And the North Node's coming into conjunction with Jupiter, which I like that transit. Even in the 6th house and your Jupiter is retrograde, this can represent that your relationships are about to change. Your relationship with health, with doctors. You could also be meeting people. Certainly Jupiter can mean you don't see it coming, but you might meet somebody who, is going to change the direction of your life in a romantic sense, or in a partnership sense, or a work sense. And having Jupiter square your moon and oppose your sun means that Moon Uranus, like, there is really high mental intelligence, emotional intelligence with that connection, but it's almost overstimulating. And I look at the Sun Mercury in the 12th house as like, sometimes you just know too much. Obviously you love astrology. Maybe you try to use it to navigate timing and traveling things. And now the North Node is conjunct Jupiter. You can really tap into a wealth of abundance and positive changes happening health-wise and also work-wise. It is testing your communication skills. It is requiring you to kind of come out of the shadows. And I feel like it's interesting because the second half of September doesn't look very social to me, especially with the eclipse very close to your ascendant. This one. So that's about rest and recuperation and coming out of what has felt like a period where you've been isolated. But I don't think you're going to feel that until Venus is on your ascendant. So I don't think you're feeling that until closer to mid-October. So the next month or so feels very retreat-like, or you're needing your alone time, or you're kind of reevaluating like what you need to let go and where you need to be less self-critical, where you need to heal. And you've got the other eclipse, which is right on your sun. I mean, probably, in my opinion, how I approach charts is the most important parts of the chart is your chart ruler, which is Venus, which is being squared by Pluto, your ascendant, which you're having eclipses conjunct, and also your sun, okay, which you're going to have an eclipse on, and the moon is going to oppose that, and it's going to square your moon. Girl, everything is changing for you with these cycles, everything. And everything comes down to, in my mind, because from an evolutionary perspective, I'm focusing on the squares to the nodes. On one hand, Jupiter energy or Sagittarius in the third is very intelligent, lots of information, lots of travel, very optimistic. But I think you're having to get real with like, what are good ideas and what are pipe dreams? How much realistically can I get done? What's going to be the most important thing for me to work on? And I would say be mindful of some of these changes of the mind or how you're connecting, communicating, or learning, which are going to pop up for you inevitably in November when you see a retrograde here. I like this retrograde. I've been thinking about this because it's going to go back into the second house of money, but I also think about how Libra risings are connecting to, with the Mercury retrograde, the 12th and the 9th house. And this could be a good time to make surprise announcements. Maybe, do a little traveling. Maybe it's a time where you're going back and you're making some tweaks or some changes to a website. Maybe you're going to go back to a course. You're going to be learning something, and it's going to be enhancing your communication skills. So watch for some of those things that are going to pop up. But eclipses on your... And the south node's hitting your sun. So you're also probably feeling like you're kind of less goal-oriented right now, or there's less energy. You can feel a little drained, particularly the next week, by the way. So you got to stay down. I mean, with these eclipses, think back to what happened in March. Like, I think about the eclipse, the Virgo eclipse we had in March. It was like not even a month later, my husband got sick, and then I got very sick, and I lost my voice. So there's better aspects now, but I mean, certainly when you're dealing with eclipses in the 12th and the 6th house, if we're overworking, overdoing it, and we're not paying attention to what our body's telling us, it puts us in bed. So make a conscious decision of what you're going to do to meditate, be in nature, stop by, a meditation studio. Maybe you might drop in for church or something. As weird as it sounds with those eclipses in your 12th house, it's going to feel peaceful. And that'll help negate some of the more negative energies of the south node in your and the eclipses in your 12th house. It could represent losses. You might feel like you're losing your mind, but you might also feel like I'm going through a whole identity shift, and I'm like releasing the ego. And it's very humbling when you go through the south node sun transit. Let me know what happens. Come back. I want to know. Does like a man get eclipsed out of your life? Are you giving up an old identities or an old goal that you're like, I don't need this anymore? But you need downtime to be able to really fully get those messages and integrate it, and definitely watch your dreams. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Adriana. All right, guys. Well, that was the Friday Live. So I'm wishing all of you guys an amazing lunar eclipse in Pisces. Stay hydrated, grab a box of Kleenex, watch your favorite movie, do some prayer work, anything you guys can do, because this is actually, I think, the better eclipse, and I think a lot of us are really going to enjoy it as we prepare for the eclipse window in 2 weeks. So I'll be back next Friday. We're going to do live tarot readings, but I'll be back around the Virgo eclipse in 2 weeks doing solar eclipse readings. So make sure you're subscribed, click the bell button below so that way you guys can see when I have new videos coming out on the channel. Definitely those of you guys who are level 4 members, go and check out my webinar. It's free. And also, if you guys are any of my memberships, you get early access to my videos so you can see some of that stuff as they pop up early. Thank you guys so much for your support. If you want to see more about me and my work, take one of my courses or check out my transit calendars, click the description below and head over to beyondtheveiltarot.com. Until next time, enjoy the weekend. I'll see you guys here soon, and happy lunar eclipse.